"You cannot defeat me, I am eternal," said Malefor, a large dragon that had dark, almost black, purple scales. His underbelly was a sickly yellow and his wings looked paler than that. He shot a dark purple beam of pure energy right in front of him. Two significantly smaller dragons shot two, albeit lighter, smaller beams of purple energy to collide with the one the Dark Master was firing from his maw. One dragon had a regal look, royal, bright purple scales, with golden horns and a orange-red wing membrane. This dragon was Spyro, a legendary purple dragon like Malefor. Unlike the Dark Master, he stood for justice and was fighting to save the world Malefor was trying, and succeeding, to destroy. His purple eyes were filled with determination and will. Beside him was a slimmer dragon with sleek, shining, and black as night scales with a magenta, nearly crimson underbelly and wing membrane, silver horns, and a scythe-like blade on her tail. This was Cinder, the former terror of the skies. She was enslaved by the evil purple dragon to cause terror and set him free from his prison. She was fighting to prove that she was no longer his puppet. Unbeknownst to each other, they were both fighting to protect the other, their love. Cinder was in love with Spyro, and Spyro with Cinder. "Just hang on," Spyro shouted to Cinder, though the convexity shooting form his maw. The point where the three beams were colliding pulsed with energy above the dark purple, crystal-like core of the planet. Spyro and Cinder both gave one last push of energy to their beams and overpowered the older dragons. The result was sending Malefor crashing into the crystal below. He got up quickly and prepared to fight them once more. Behind Malefor, rising from the crystal's surface, were the silhouettes of a dragon thought to be dead. "What is this?" Malefor, looking at the shapes of the dragon, circled around him. One by one they grabbed Malefor by his limbs, and slowly dragged him down into the core, to be imprisoned once more. "No," were the Dark Master's final words to the plane of existence. With its creator non-existent, the snake-like chain binding the two adolescent dragons together dissolved into nothing. Spyro and Cinder glided down to land on the now glowing crystal as the world broke apart around them. "Spyro, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," said Cinder, looking down in shame, it also being evident in her voice. Spyro looked her in the eyes hard. "Don't be, it's over now." Cinder looked around her at the breaking planet. So this is it? She was scared that no one was going to survive this. Not Terrador, not Volter, not Cyril, definitely not that Motormouth Sparks, not even Spyro or her. Spyro had his eyes closed in concentration, trying to find a way to stop this cataclysm. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the cavernous chamber. Behind him, seen only by the black dragon, was the image of Spyro's mentor and father figure, Ignitus, the guardian of the fire element. Spyro, when a dragon dies, he does not truly leave this world. His spirit lives on, binding itself with nature, offering hope for the future, Ignitus said, ascending up the chamber. That is when Spyro's eyes opened with the glimmer of hope. He put on a mask of determination and looked to his companion. "I know what I need to do," he said, looking at her. He walked forward a couple steps and looked at her again. "Just get out of here, Cinder." "Spyro, no," she protested. "You don't have to do anything, let's just go," she said, afraid of what he might do and thinking about the words the deceased fire guardian said. "Go where, Cinder?" he said, looking at her hard. "There'll be nothing left," he said. He looked down a moment, "But I think I can stop it." He could look at her when he said, "I think I meant to." He looked at her and into her eyes and saw determination, and something else he couldn't place. "Then I'm with you," Cinder said, making her point that she wasn't going anywhere without him. He looked at her surprised, and began his task of repairing the world. He rose up into the air, gathering energy and made the world seem silent. His entire body was glowing with the power he was compressing into it, and before he unleashed it around him, he thought he heard Cinder whisper something. "I love you," echoed throughout the chamber. On the surface, and the power soared through the fire, stone, and air. It surrounded the planet, the breaking planet in a purplish-white glow, and well around the planet. The aura put the planet back together like a puzzle, except swiftly and with great force. Meanwhile, on the surface of the world, a beautiful sight was to behold. As the smaller pieces of Earth slowly sank down into their place on the planet, a golden dawn was rising. Emerging from the mouth of a nearby cave was a group of unlikely friends and allies. Out first was a small, golden, insect-like creature. He was in awe and weakly pointing to the sunrise before him. Next came was a tall, humanoid creature, with large, sharp green eyes, a bow on his left shoulder, and wearing the colors of his tribe. Behind him were 3 massive dragons, a forest green one, with an underbelly that looked like stone, an icy blue one with a chilling purple underbelly, and a yellow one, with an electric blue underbelly and wings. They all looked at the dawn with relief in the voices and pride in their hearts. They looked up at the sky in the fading twilight and saw a constellation form before their very eyes. It was in the image of a dragon in flight, preparing to unleash a massive fury attack. They did it, Sparks said, barely believing himself. They did it. Woo! Sparks was buzzing his wings loudly and doing all sort of flips and tricks in the air, the dragonfly obviously overjoyed. Looks like Spyro did a good job, Terrador, the guardian of Earth, said in his gruff voice. Do not count out young Cinder, old friend, said Volter, guardian of electricity. Yes, I believe this calls for a celebration, said Cyril, the guardian of the ice element. I agree, Cyril, but not just a celebration, a holiday and memorial to those who fought and died so that Malfoy can be defeated once and for all, said the proud voice of the cheetah, hunter of Avalar. Indeed, but what to name it? Terrador asked to himself looking out at the seemingly self-repairing landscape. How about the Fall of Malfoy? Suggested Volter. No, sounds more like a play or book, voiced Cyril. How about Spyro's Day? Cinder did help, so it would not do her justice to give all the credit to Spyro, said Hunter. Why not, the Dawn of the Dragon, sounds better to me. Perfect. The Dawn of the Dragon, the day that the dragon race dawned once more, from the brink of destruction. Cyril said with great pride. So be it, voiced Terrador. Let this day be forever known as the Dawn of the Dragon. Huzzah! Shouted the moles, cheetahs, and dragons behind them, basking in the light of a new day. Watching this scene unfold from the pages of a tome was a large, teal dragon wearing an hourglass pendant and a navy blue cape. The dragon was known only as the Chronicler, a dragon of immeasurable wisdom and knowledge, chosen to watch over the books of time, which contain records of every part of history and the lives of every dragon. Be welcome, friend, I have long been expecting you, he said looking to his left, then back to the tome floating before him. A new age is beginning, he said looking at the images passing through the page of the book. The first of the planet being repaired, the next of a stone city being rebuilt, and the last being the dragon guardians and Sparks standing side by side. With each new age, a worthy dragon is chosen to chronicle the many triumphs and failures of that age, he said watching the images flicker and fade to the next. This has been my duty for many millennia, and now, looking up from the book and looking to his guest, an equally large orange-red scaled dragon that had a look similar to Spyro, and some wrinkles on his maw from smiling, Ignitus, I pass it on to you. Ignitus stepped forward to move to peer into the book. And what of Spyro? Is he asked with worry. The chronicler looked to the book. That is the question, isn't it? He said. He looked to his soon-to-be successor. The book in front of him floated away to be replaced by another think tome. You see, each time a dragon dies, a new page is written in this book, he said, opening it up to a blank page soon to be filled and written. I've done my best, but I can't seem to find any trace of Spyro or Cinder, he said to the former fire guardian. The chronicler began to glow and his essence went through Ignitus into the book. Ignitus had pale, blue, armor-like plate grow onto his shoulders and hind legs. His fiery scales faded into the same hue as his predecessor's scales. Ignitus was then wearing the garbs of the chronicler and brought the book to himself. Well, young dragon, where might you be? He said looking at the blank page. The former chronicler seemed to have one final task to do. Meanwhile, on another far distant planet. Let's see here the first jutsu is. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. Naruto Uzumaki read to himself aloud. Oh, come on, that's my worst jutsu, he exclaimed to himself. He had stolen the forbidden scroll of sealing from the Hokage's office for the makeup exam that Mizuki-sensei was giving him to become a genin. Might as well try it, he said looking through the other overly complicated jutsu in the scroll. A couple hours later. Hey, I got it down pat, he said panting with a look of triumph clear on his face. Might as well learn another awesome jutsu, he said plopping down to read the scroll again. Let's see here, sealing jutsu. Reaper death seal, sealing jutsu. 8 trigram seal. Summoning jutsu. Impure world resurrection. Boring. Where are all the good jutsu? Were some of the blonde's thoughts. Huh? A storage seal, Naruto said, looking at the basic seal. He knew them from a lesson in sealing from Iruka-sensei, a class he found interesting. All I need is a bit of blood, and he bit his thumb and smeared his blood over the seal, releasing its contents. A poof of smoke revealed a slightly smaller scroll than the forbidden scroll of sealing next to it. It was a deep blue that reminded himself of someone in his class, maybe their hair color? It was covered in black runes that seemed to change every so often. This looks cool, he said as he unraveled the scroll. Inside were sections, and before those were runes that definitely were swirling. Whoa! The runes twisted themselves into the kanji he can read. Summoning contract. Sign in blood. Smear blood on palm. Hand signs. Boar, dog, bird, monkey, ram. Looks pretty easy, he mumbled to himself. He took his still bleeding thumb and began to write his name in the first slot. Naruto Uzumaki. He mumbled again as he wrote his name in it. Should probably take this with me, he said as he tucked the scroll under his supply backpack. There you are, Naruto, said a voice Naruto, for once, was glad to hear. Hey, Iruka-sensei. Meanwhile, in an unknown location. My head. The mighty purple dragon groaned. Where am I? Where's Cinder? He asked aloud, looking around. He saw that they were in large meadow, on what seemed to be an altar, a large stone statue of something that looked like a furless cheetah on a pedestal. It seemed to have its fur on top of its head and it was spiky. He was wearing a long cloak with symbols on the back of it. In its left hand it was holding a staff with a ring on top that had other rings on it. His face, or rather his eyes, had to be the most drawing part. He had a soft, but stern face, but his eyes were a ripple pattern and didn't seem to have pupils. Around the altar were statues of different and strange creatures. A weird-looking raccoon with a crazed expression, to a fox with 9 lashing tails. A voice he was longing to hear brought him out of his observations. Spyro? He looked to the source of the voice and saw Cinder, tired, but very much alive. She looked as if she was struggling under her own weight. Cinder! Spyro shouted overjoyed, ran to his love and nearly tackled her to the ground in a hug, with his forelegs and wings, rubbing his cheek against hers affectionately, tears of joy flowing freely from his closed eyes. Cinder, on the other hand, was a bit flustered. Sure, she was happy to see Spyro and herself alive, but the last thing she expected Spyro to do was this. She likes the feeling, it just wasn't expected. She could feel heat rising to her face. Spyro? She asked barely over the volume of a mumble. Yes, Canyon? He asked, still rubbing their cheeks together. Canyon? She thought. They hadn't even confessed their feelings and he already had a pet name for her? You can stop anytime now, she said nervously. Spyro snapped his eyes open and realized what he was doing. He and Cinder could feel the heat rise to his face. He moved away, embarrassed and flustered. Sorry, Cinder, he mumbled. It's okay, she giggled to herself. Spy-fi, she said, giggled again. Spy-fi? The legendary purple dragon thought in surprise. Well, since you came up with a pet name for me, I came up with one for you, Cinder said, giggling again at his face. He realized he said his thoughts aloud. Cinder, can I ask you a question? Spyro asked nervously, not looking directly at her. You just did, but you can ask one again, she said, and giggled at her own joke. Is what you said back there, in the chamber, before I fixed the world? Is it true? He asked nervously, his voice laced with the fear, anxiety, and nervousness of being it not being true. Cinder looked at him, smiled warmly, filled with the kind of confidence that is only gained once in a lifetime. Yes, Spyro, it is true. I do love you, with all my heart. When you said that you had nothing left to fight for when Malefort took over me again, I knew you weren't fighting for yourself, Ignitus, the Guardians, or even the world, but for me. You have no idea how many beats my heart skipped when you said that. You set me free from him. Even if he was still here, he could never take over me again, because I love you too much to let him do that. She spilled her heart out. He was stunned beyond all belief. The beautiful dragoness that he'd been through thick and thin, loved him? He was frozen in his joy. The dragon he loved loves him. Cinder was tired of waiting for him to say something, so she walked up to him, her talons click-clacking on the stone beneath her. She suddenly got cold feet about what she was going to do. She was nervous that he might reject her. What if he hated her for it? She was snapped out of her thoughts by Spyro locking his lips with hers. Her eyes were wide with shock that the object of her affections was kissing her suddenly. She just melted into the kiss and fell into his embrace. Spyro pulled himself and Cinder onto their hind legs and wrapped his wings around her in an even more passionate embrace. They broke the kiss for precious oxygen, just stared into each other's eyes for a moment. "I love you, Cinder," was all that he said, and Cinder gave him a peck on the lips. "I love you, too, Spyro," she said, nuzzling into his neck. "As much as I hate to interrupt this tender moment, I'm afraid that we don't have much time," said a smooth, ancient voice that they both recognized. "Chronicler?" asked Spyro, not believing it himself. The teal dragon stepped out from behind the statue of the nine-tailed fox. "Yes, Spyro, Cinder, it is I must congratulate you both on saving the planet. Only you two could have possibly stopped Malfour, as well as undo all the damage he has done. I wish I could not ask you any more of you two, but—" "You're kidding me, right?" Cinder interrupted. "We just saved the world and became a couple. I think we deserve a break," she said, intertwining her tail with Spyro's. "I wish I was, Cinder. I wish I was. I'm afraid that a new world needs your help," he said, and he glanced at the humanoid statue. "One very much different from our own," he said. "I guess it has to do with these statues?" he said, looking around at the stone depictions of Striang creatures. "Observant as always, Spyro," the ancient dragon said with a smile. "Yes, these statues act similar to convexity, an airlock between worlds. This world was once ravaged by endless war and evil demons whose evil rivaled, and even succeeded, that of Malfour, and even more powerful in some cases," he said seriously. That made both Spyro and Cinder gulp loudly. Something more evil and powerful than Malfour? Needless to say, if they were anyone else, they would quake in their metaphorical boots. "This man," he said, lightly flicking his tail on the humanoid statue in the center, "saved this world by defeating and sealing away all but one of the demons in the earth, similar to what Ignitus did to Malfour," he said. "Ignitus is alive?" Spyro asked, expecting an answer then and there. "In a way," he said, still looking in the ripples in the statue's eyes. "You could say that he is my replacement as chronicler for the new age." "He's the chronicler now? What about you?" Cinder asked, since Spyro is in shock processing this information. "I'm afraid that it is time for me to join the ancestors soon. I just have to perform one final task, sending you on your new mission," the chronicler said solemnly. "As I was saying, this man couldn't seal one demon into the earth like the others. This one had a nearly infinite amount of energy that they use in this world called chakra. It was only as the 10 tails," he said. The altar shook as if the mere mention of the 10 tails was taboo. Ahem, the man, the sage of the 6 paths, instead defeated it and sealed the chakra of the beast into his own body, and sealed the body into a rock, which he threw into the sky. The rock went into orbit and became the moon, the chronicler continued. "He created the moon?" Spyro asked in shocked, for the umpteenth time that day. Cinder nodded, reaffirming her love's question. "Yes, and if you two would kindly stop interrupting, we won't waste precious time," said the annoyed ancient. "As I was saying," he then went on to spread his religion, which would become the basis for the world's fighting styles, and sought to create peace. When he was near the end of his life, he created 9 beasts from the chakra of the 10 tails, the creatures around you. He trusted them to make sure the 10 tails would never be reborn. He considered himself their father and trusted them with the world. His human sons were to carry on his legacy and protect the tailed beasts. The oldest inherited the sage's eyes, believed that power was the way to world peace. The younger son inherited the sage's body, and almost godly stamina, believed love was the way to world peace. Since he believed that his younger son was just, he named him his heir. Enraged by this fact, the older son declared war on his brother and fought him. The 2 sons soon established clans, and their rivalry was passed on to them. The older son's clan became known as the Uchiha clan, and the younger's became the Senju, and their cousins, the Uzumaki, said the ancient dragon. "It'll be up to you to save this world from the impending doom that is soon to come, to protect my old friend's legacy. When everything passes over, you'll come back to our world, you'll be helping a supposed child of prophecy, similar to you, Spyro, the chronicler said with a wink. So we need to help this guy, and he can go home? Cinder asked, cutting to the chase as usual. Is essentials, yes. This child's name is Naruto Uzumaki. He has bright yellow hair, and deep blue eyes. The teal dragon nodded. A loud, poofing sound drew their attention to the sage's statue. A portal appeared directly beneath it. It would appear it is time for you to go now, young dragons. He walked over to the edge of the portal, which looked like a very deep puddle. Naruto has the nine-tailed fox sealed within him, but the seal exceptionally strong. Do not fear. Good luck, he said as they stepped into the puddle portal. May the ancestors watch over you, the chronicler whispered before he faded into nothingness. A few minutes earlier, with Naruto. Naruto was frustrated. He was trying to take the silver-haired Chunin down without risking his favorite sensei. Mizuki was blocking almost every one of his attacks. He didn't know if Mizuki was holding back or not, but if he had the fox in gut or not, he'll be damned if he lets this bastard hurt Iruka-sensei. Is that all you got, nine-tailed fox? Your pathetic clones are even weaker than you. Mizuki screamed in maniacal glee. Iruka was down for the count, his body unable to move of his own accord, his back impaled with half a dozen shuriken. Naruto, Iruka thought, worried about his favorite student. Looks like I'll have to that other jutsu, he said before he bit his thumb. Oh, look, the brat thinks he can summon. Bring it on, Nine Tails. Mizuki laughed. Summoning jutsu. Naruto shouted as he slammed his hand on the ground, created an array of kanji from his palm. A large poof of smoke obscured the area around Naruto. The two Chunin curious as to what Naruto could have possibly summoned. When the smoke cleared, before his were two creatures with horns, wings, scales, tails, and claws. One, that was taller and wider, obviously built for strength, was purple and gold, a really regal-looking creature. The other was sleeker, slimmer, looked faster than the other, was majestic-looking, black and kind of dark pink. Dragons? Shouted Mizuki, obviously only hearing of the legendary animals in just that, legends. The demon brat summoned dragons? A dragon contract was only heard of legends. Naruto did have a scroll tucked under his bag that was similar to the Forbidden Scroll. Iruka, on the other hand, was shell-shocked. Naruto truly was the most unpredictable person in the world. To be able to summon a legendary creature like dragons is a feat in itself. He smiled, knowing Naruto was truly going to strong dragons or not. Naruto was just grinning like a loon. He was able to call dragons. Mizuki didn't stand a chance now. Where are we, Cinder? Asked the purple dragon, its deep violet eyes darting around. I don't know, Spyro, but shouldn't we focus on finding that kid? What was his name? Maruko or something? The black dragon, now identified as Cinder, replied. Hey, it's Naruto. Naruto, shouted the orange-clad boy behind them. Well, that was easy, said Spyro, smiling at the boy who was about a head taller than him. Aren't you guys supposed to help me fight or something? Asked Naruto, his eyes narrowed at the summoned lizards. Hey, we just got here. I think we should be able to look Aru, Cinder started. Cinder, look out, Spyro shouted as he grabbed Cinder by her forelegs and took to the air, her tail blade barely clinking against a massive shuriken. Quite a narrow dodge. Naruto managed to duck in time, but not without casualty. Hey, this was my favorite outfit, you bastard, he yelled and shook his fist angrily at Mizuki, ripping away the remains of his jumpsuit from his chest. Now, I'm going to send that back 1,000-fold. Bring it on, nine-tailed fox. Mizuki shouted. Spyro, shouldn't we do something? Asked Cinder, her and her love well above the battlefield, wings beating strong. I'm not sure, Cinder, Spyro said, as he watched the bare-chested blonde form his fingers into a cross-like sign. We might not be any match for these guys. Multi-shadow clone jutsu, Naruto shouted, as scores of his image appeared in the clearing. They were in the trees, the grass, and even on the higher ground above. Each blonde was smirking proudly. Everyone there was astonished. Iruka was amazed that Naruto was unable to use the Academy standard clone jutsu. He was able to pull off a far more advanced version that created solid, flesh and blood clones, instead of illusions. There were at least 1,000 clones. Spyro and Cinder were in awe of the power of this new world. If they could create multiple copies of themselves, who knows what else they could do? Would they be able to call upon convexity? Mizuki was pissed that the Nine-Tails brat was able to keep to his word, and now he was scared that he wouldn't be able to walk away from this. What's wrong? Weren't you going to kill me with one shot? All the Narutos spoke as one. Well, I'll start then, the original said. Mizuki's screams couldn't be heard outside the clearing. 30 minutes later, Mizuki was barely recognizable, his cheeks and eyes were swollen. Both his eyes were black and closed, his nose was broken and blotty. Sorry, Iruka-sensei. I guess I overdid it a little, Naruto said, looking sheepish and grinning his foxy grin. Ya think? That was just plain brutal, voiced Cinder, looking over Mizuki with Spyro. Trust me, coming from her, it's bad, said Spyro with a deadpanned look on his face, looking dead at Naruto. Cinder just smacked his lightly with the blunt side with her tail blade and playfully glared at him. Naruto himself just glared with his eyes narrowed at the black dragon. Hey, Naruto, Iruka called, ignoring the dragons, with a smile on his face and pride in his eyes. Come here, I want to give you something. Spyro and Cinder watched as the injured man untied the cloth that was around his head, and tied it around Naruto's. It had a metal plate on it, the plate had a symbol on that appeared to be a spiral. Naruto opened in his eyes in shock, his hand flying to his forehead, misbelief and joy etched onto his face. Iruka was just smiling warmly. Congratulations, Naruto. You are now a ninja of the village hidden in the leaves. Naruto tackled his teacher in a tight hug, laughing into the man's chest. In the Hokage's office, third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi was watching the boy he saw as his grandson become a ninja and smiled warmly at the heartwarming moment he seen through his chakra-powered crystal ball. You deserve the chance to become all you can be, Naruto, the old man thought warmly. When he turned his focus to the dragons overlooking the traitor's body, his eyes became hard and analytical. That summoning contract was unable to be signed by anyone who tried. Each and every Hokage has tried to sign it to find out what sort of creature would be called from it. Only his late successor, Minato Namikaze, came the closest, since his signature glowed green before disappearing, unlike his and Tobirama's that turned to vapor as they signed. Summoned by Naruto or not, these dragons are a risk that I must investigate, he thought. Yugao, Tenzo, appear now, he shouted into the seemingly empty room. Sir, said the two members of the Anbu Black Ops appeared before their leader. One Anbu had long, straight, violet hair, and two swords strapped to her back. She had a porcelain cat mask hiding her face. The other, a male, had short, spiky, brown hair, and no visible weapons. They both wore the same black and gray uniform. I need you to go retrieve Naruto and the creatures there unharmed and conscious. Do not engage under any circumstances. Also, have Iruka bring Mizuki to torture and interrogation. I want to find out who he was working for, the Hokage standing up before his bowed shinobi. Understood, sir, they said before they disappeared using the body flicker jutsu. The Hokage sighed and took a long drag from his tobacco pipe. This will cause so much paperwork. Back with Spyro and Cinder. These guys all look like furless apes, said Cinder. Yeah, let's hope they're friendlier than them. Spyro agreed, watching the former master and student pair. What do you think a genin is? Asked Cinder. Spyro shrugged as he lay down in the grass beside Cinder, intertwining their tails. Maybe it's some sort of profession? Inquired Spyro. Naruto Uzumaki, Iruka Amino, we have orders from the Hokage, sounded a female voice on the far end of the clearing. The two shinobi stood at attention to two members of their village's special forces. Amino, you are to bring Mizuki to T and I for interrogation and await further orders, sounded the female Anbu. Iruka nodded and proceeded to scoop up Mizuki's body. I'll see you later, Naruto, Iruka said before he disappeared with the traitor in tow. Uzumaki, sounded the male Anbu. Naruto tried his best to appear professional, but all he did was look like he needed to take a dump. You and the dragons are to come with me to see the Hokage, said the bear-masked shinobi with no room for argument. Naruto went over to the Anbu without question, but annoyed look on his face. Spyro and Cinder, on the other hand, were wary of the man. How do we know we can trust you? Asked Cinder, preparing to charge up some of her wind element. You have no choice, dragon, said Tenzo, glaring from behind his mask. Don't worry, voiced Naruto, smiling truly. The old man is one of the nicest guys in the world. He won't do anything to hurt you. Spyro and Cinder looked at each other and nodded a silent agreement. See what this old man Hokage had to say, and voiced to him why they were here. Don't fight unless in defense. They slowly trotted over to the taller human. Take my hand, he said to everyone present. Naruto took his left hand. Spyro took his right and tightened his grip with Cinder's tail. They vanished without a trace, leaving the moonlit clearing empty. The Hokage's chambers. When Tenzo landed from his body flicker, his 3 passengers weren't so calm and collected as he was. Whoa, that was awesome, Naruto shouted, bouncing on the balls of feet from the high-speed experience. Let's do that, eh? He started before the telltale sound of vomiting. Spyro and Cinder were on the floor, their stomachs emptying their near-nothing contents. Never, Spyro started before he vomited again, staining the wooden floor of the room. Again, Cinder finished for Spyro, the both of them heaving like they ran a marathon. They never had moved so quickly in their lives. I apologize, everyone's first experience with the body flicker technique is never pleasant, apologized the bare-faced ninja. Naruto, dragons, come with me, there isn't much time, said an old man urgently. He was a light-skinned man with short, spiky, gray hair under a large red and white and a long, thick goatee. His face betrayed his age, as there were numerous wrinkles, pronounced cheekbones, a wart near his left nostril, and liver spots. He was wearing a fiery red cloth with a white sash under a white robe. He quickly put on the hat he was holding in his left hand, that was the same crimson as the garb. What is it, old man? Naruto asked urgently and worried. Spyro and Cinder were surprised that this old geezer was the leader. They would have thought he would have retired by now. Sure, the Guardians were old, but they were the strongest dragons other than themselves. I'm afraid someone on the council found out about it and leaked what has happened to the civilians. They've called an emergency meeting. Come with me, all 3 of you, said the Hokage urgently. Lord Third, what should I do? Asked the Anbu still here. Shadow us and protect our guest from any and all threats. Triple S class priority, Tenzo, he said seriously and with hesitation. Triple S class meant that their protection status was seconded only by the reigning Kage. Only X class was more important, but that was only if the Hokage themselves were fighting for the objective, only last used 13 years ago, during the Nine Tails attack. Needless to say, Tenzo was pulling out all the stops. Yes, sir, he said before he went through some hand signs stopping with the clone sign. Wood style. Multi-wood clone jutsu. From his arms and fingertips sprouted tree roots and they went to multiple spots on the floor. In moments, the roots began to take human shapes, just a few seconds and they were indistinguishable from the Anbu. They soon disappeared into the shadows. Wow, first shadows, now wooden clones. What else can you people do? Cinder asked bluntly, in awe of the technique that was just seen before her eyes. She and Spyro looked expectantly for an answer to the old man who just smiled warmly. A ninja's most important tool is deception, dragons. Remember that in your time here, he said. Old man, how was that guy able to use wood style? Only the first Hokage could do that, Naruto asked, wondering if the first Hokage was brought back to life. I'll tell you and our companions later. We have a bloody meeting to get to, he said grumbling. He looked back to the dragons and winked, that's sometimes literal, too. They just looked deadpanned at the dark humor. And followed closely behind into the long hallway to their left. Now, there are a few rules for these meetings, young ones. I'm assuming you're young, dragons, the old man said, walking at a civilian's version of rushing. You are not to speak unless I give the order or allow you to. Do not move away from my side unless I say so. If you follow these rules, I can guarantee your lives a little bit more, he said completely serious. Cinder was about to open her mouth in defiance and mouth off the Hokage, but was thankfully interrupted by the orange-clad ninja. Guys, seriously? My death is called for every meeting, Naruto said humorously, but you could feel the seriousness laced in with it. Cinder closed her mouth. Within moments, they reached a door, but waiting for them was someone they didn't want to meet. Hello, Danzo, said the Hokage warmly. The man addressed as Danzo looked like a good toss of a ball will kill him. He was extremely bandaged, and had a cane. He also walked with a noticeable limp. Hello, Hiruzen, said the crippled warhawk. I see these are the strange demons, he said emphasizing the word, that everyone's talking about that young Naruto has summoned. Cinder looked crestfallen. It was bad enough that she was called the terror of the skies back in her own world, but to be called demon too. Danzo, sir, this caught the cripple's attention immediately. We are dragons, not demons. I kindly ask you do not call me or Cinder that again, Spyro said diplomatically. This caused the Warhawk to good-naturally chuckle. I assure you that I did not mean anything by it to Cinder or you. He subtly asked his name. Spyro, the purple dragon, he said. Interesting name. Are you young for dragons? Asked the Warhawk. 13 years old, we are. I'm not sure how long we can live, but my mentor was well over 150, he said truthfully. Amazing, we humans can usually live until 80. Ninja aren't as lucky, as most die in the field in their 20s, said Danzo, amazed with the dragon's lifespan. We have a meeting, Danzo, we shouldn't waste time with idle chit-chat, said Hiruzen. Ah, well, you know us old fossils, Danzo said chuckling, as well as Hiruzen. Let's go, old friend, he said as they stepped through the door, Naruto soon behind them. This left Spyro and Cinder in a state of déjà vu. Flashback. A massive door stood before them. Behind Spyro and Cinder was a darkened, red sky, from their view above a volcano. Are you ready for this? Spyro asked Cinder. I'm scared, she said truthfully. Spyro looked to the door which behind, Malfoy was waiting. Just stay close to me, Spyro said, taking the first step towards the final battle. Flashback end. Just like last time, huh? Asked Cinder. Too much like last time, agreed Spyro. They didn't say anything else. The hall was silent except for the muffled yells from the council room next door. Let's do this better than last time, he said, wrapping a wing around Cinder in a side hug. She smiled warmly at the action and licked Spyro's muzzle in response. Let's. When they stepped through the door, the room came silent. To their left was a low table with the most mix-match people sitting on one side of it. The first two seats were empty. In front of them were crest of the representatives. There was a man with white eyes, pupil-less eyes and black hair, in a very formal-looking robes. His crest was an odd flame symbol. The next they couldn't see except for spectacles, his entire body covered in his garb. His symbol was an insect. The next was a man that looked like he was about to fall asleep, his face scarred and hair in a spiked ponytail in what looked like a very dirty coat. His eyes, however, was sharper than any blade, and analyzing everything about them. His symbol looked like a flowing wall. The next has spiky dark blonde hair, with a straight ponytail in the back, dressed in a flak vest under a long red robe. His symbol kinda looked like a brain in a head. The man after his was the most intimidating. He was huge and wearing armor, he has long, red hair and was eating chips from a bag. His symbol was two triangles divided from each other by a line. The next was the only woman at that table and she looked downright feral. Beside her was a massive dog with an eye patch. The crest in front of them looked like two red fangs. Another was a tall, fair-skinned woman with shoulder-length, blonde hair with a single bang which falls down into her face. She also has green eyes and wears a white dress with 3 red circular designs. Her crest was a simple dark circle. On the other side was pretty generic. A bunch of people that looked weaker and much more formal. All but one man was fat. The women were skinny and winter trees and were looking at them with disdain. All of them but this one man. He was the least formal on this side of the council. He has short, straight hair. He had an emerald green, sleeveless shirt that had a wingless, long dragon design on it. He had a sword on his back and was wearing the same headplate that was on Naruto. He's smiling at them warmly, filling Spyro and Cinder with hope. They turned behind them and saw the Hokage on a raised platform, with Danzo to his right, and Naruto behind him standing beside him, worry in his eyes. Below the raised platform, but on the same level as Danzo, was another man with glasses and an old woman in a kimono. The Hokage nodded subtlety and began the council meeting. This meeting of the United Council of the Village Hidden in the Leaves has begun. Lord 3rd Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi presiding. What is the purpose of this emergency meeting? Said the old man in a voice that commanded authority. The fattest man on the civilian side stood up, although the floorboards creaked under his weight. The feral woman on the opposite side flinched at the noise as well as her companion. This meeting is to call for the immediate and public execution of the imprisoned 9-tailed fox as well as the demons it has summoned to aid in its escape, he said, pointing to Naruto, then at Spyro and Cinder. Spyro and Cinder were shell-shocked that their deaths were being called for immediately, not even an hour in this world. Hiruzen spoke in their defense and rescue. I have told this council time and time again. Naruto Uzumaki is not nor ever will be the 9 tails that is imprisoned within his being. He is only the prison for the beast. As for the dragons before us, he said, waving his hand to the purple and black dragons in the center of the room. They were summoned via contract that was retrieved by the first Hokage himself from the fox den at the Valley of the End. If they were demonic anyway, the 9 tails would have been freed the moment they arrived into this world, said the Hokage in confidence. Yes, said the shinobi on the civilian side. The seal is more powerful storage seal. I've worked with seals enough with my daughter to know that the scroll will not become the kunai. Then what if they free the fox in time of their stay? Surely if they were those servant animals they would have disappeared by now, said an arrogant civilian woman. Not only did Hiruzen glare at the woman, but so did the hooded man and the feral woman. Summoning contracts are a part of shinobi life. The Inuzuka and Aburame clans rely on their companions for battle and fellowship. They are no servants. If you want, I can invite Enma to the meeting again, he said. The council paled, even the clan heads. The last time Hiruzen summoned Enma, they all were reminded why he had the 2 titles, God of Shinobi and the Professor. Even in his old age, he was still a devastating opponent. No, Lord Hokage, sir, the woman sputtered out of fear. Now then, let's let the dragons explain why they're here, starting with introducing themselves to the council, he said, looking at the dragons with a hint of a smile and Naruto giving them the thumbs up. Spyro and Cinder gulped and instantly latched one another's tails for courage. They had never been in a formal situation before. Spyro began for them first. Honored Council, I am the Purple Dragon, Spyro. This is my mate-to-be, Cinder, Spyro began. I'm assuming that Purple Dragon is not just naming the color of your scales, but a title, said the man with spiky ponytail. You're right, Shikaku. Would you kindly explain the purpose of your title, Spyro? Asked the hooded man to Shikaku's right. It does name the color of my scales, but it also shows my potential power. A purple dragon can do almost anything and can use any element and power, including manipulation over time itself, Spyro said truthfully. The council gasped at this, including Danzo, power over time itself? Does this mean you can go back or forward in time? Asked the blonde man to Shikaku's left. No, sir, mister, asked Spyro. Inoichi Yamanaka is my name, Spyro, he said, identifying himself. No, Inoichi, sir. I can only slow time down and see glimpse of the very near future. I may also be able to stop time in a small isolated area that I'm in, I'm not sure, said Spyro. Please continue, Spyro. Your title, said the Hokage. Yes, I can use the 4 basic elements, fire, electricity, ice, and earth, he said. Both Cinder and I can use the element exclusive to purple dragons, convexity, the element of space, matter, and energy, Spyro said, enticing another gasp at the council. You must be very powerful. How old are you? Asked the man with white eyes. Both Cinder and I were born in the year of the dragon, which was 13 years ago, said Spyro, with Cinder nodding. For someone so young, yet so powerful, I'm surprised that your home let you go, Danzo said, thinking one being's trash is another's jackpot. Well, he wouldn't like the fame and constant fangirls, and I won't be a pariah like you made Naruto to be, Cinder said in her confident, defiant voice for the first time before the council. Why would he have fangirls, and you be a pariah? Asked the woman with the canine companion. He saved the world from the monster that made me his puppet. She yelled with tears in her eyes. Before we came here, we saved our world from being completely destroyed by the Dark Master, Malefor, the purple dragon before me, said Spyro. A purple dragon has the power to destroy a planet? Asked Danzo. Apparently so. But I'm not as powerful as Malefor, nor would I try to destroy anything, assured Spyro. How do we know that, Lizard? You should be executed here and now for the power you hold, just like that boy, said a fat civilian. It is not the power you have, but the way to use that power, said Spyro sagely. Also, councilman? Interjecting Shikaku. What, Nara? Said the woman next to the fat guy. Given that you and your fellow civilian councilman revealed the secret, you just broke a law that the penalty is death, said Shikaku, with a lazy smirk. Earlier, you revealed Naruto's status as Jinchuriki, meaning, you broke the third's law. Lord Hokage, you must be reasonable, the spoiled civilian stuttered. These things were summoned by the demon. They wouldn't be here if they didn't know of its weakened form. I agree, Lord Hokage, they aren't human, like the boy, they must be killed. The purple whelp even said it has the power to destroy the entire planet. We must kill them for the safety of not just the village, but the world over, pleaded his friend. No, you do not have that power. The right of execution is only for the Hokage to decide it, said the aged shinobi firmly. Then you are not fit to be Hokage a moment longer, Sarutobi, said the civilian council other than the man with the headband signifying him as a ninja. Our savior, our fourth Hokage once said that it is the ninja that serve the people of this village. The civilian council, are the people, said the civilian on the farthest end. This is treason, against the village, against the Hokage, against the land of fire, and against the wishes of Minato, said the muscled man on the traitor side of the council. You are betraying us, Buki. You may be a guild master, but you are also a ninja, so choose, your lunatic leader that will be taken down, or us that will rise to power, said the toothpick woman. Buki leaps back and takes out a pair of rather large scrolls. Lord Hokage, may I request a C-rank mission? In fact, I'll assign it to you now. Execute the civilian council under charges of treason and conspiracy to overthrow the seat of Hokage, said Hiruzen, looking much like his alias of God of Shinobi. You can't, said the fat man, scared. Buki slammed the scrolls on the ground and began to look at his targets. Ninja art. Twin rising dragons. He shouted as he slammed the scrolls down into an upright position. An explosion of smoke gave way to two intertwining dragons made of smoke to rise up. When the smoke cleared, it was plain to see him in between the rotating scrolls. He reached to one of them in a blink of an eye and threw it towards the civilians with precision and speed, with many more following soon after. No, shouted Cinder as she went to intercept the weapon, rising up and spinning as she did so. She channeled her energy around her body and spun, manipulating the air around her into wind, then gusts, to create a vortex that moved seemingly faster than she moved in the center. The first weapon got caught in the vortex and another, score by score. Each weapon was handlessly caught by Cinder as she increased speed. When Buki's technique was complete, he glared at the dragon, albeit mildly. Why did you stop me, dragon? Cinder glared at the man, then the Hokage. They will not die tonight, she stated simply. Lord Hokage, these people are traitors, but should they really be killed? Asked Spyro, pleading for no bloodshed. The Hokage contemplated this for a moment. The rising tension was thick enough that it could almost be seen in the air. Each person was anxious, wondering what the outcome will be. He took a long drag on his tobacco pipe before finally speaking. Spyro, for someone so young you show a great potential for wisdom, and it takes great strength to act on that wisdom. I almost made a foolish decision, he turned to the civilians. Treason and conspiracy, however, is no juvenile crime either, he said, glaring at them at a level only a cage could. You are to be taken to Anbu Torture and Interrogation Department for questions and investigation on how far this corruption is rooted. Afterward, you will be imprisoned for no less than 20 years, that is my final decision, said the Hokage, stunning everyone in the room except Danzo. Old friend, still as soft as ever, thought the Warhawk solemnly, thinking he'll have his own men inside the prison take care of them. Bear, take them away, shouted the Hokage as the Anbu shadowing the dragons emerged along with his clones, and carried the civilians away. Thank you, Lord Hokage, said Spyro, bowing his head, and draping his wing as far as it could in front of his chest. Cinder mirrored his action as well. The Hokage smiled at this, but frowned as he remembered something. There is still the matter of the contract, regaining the attention of the room from the previously bowing dragons. The contract would have taken you back to your world by now if you didn't do so yourselves in the first place, said the Hokage, troubled. Perhaps we should have Master Jiraiya take a look at the seals making up the contract. He is the world's leading sealing jutsu specialist, proposed the white-eyed man. A pleasant idea, Hiashi. Jiraiya, get over here if you would, he called out to the room. Jiraiya made himself clear and known, as he appeared right beside Spyro and Cinder, startling them both. He was a tall man with spiky, white hair that went to his waist, and two bangs that went down to his shoulder, framing his face. He also had 2 red lines that made him look like he was crying blood, a wart on the right side of his nose, as well as a different metal plate on his forehead than any of the others they had seen around here. It had what looked like horns and a symbol that looked like it was written in ink. He was wearing a thin, metal suit, perhaps made of chain, under long green robes, similar to what Hiyashi was wearing. Those 2 pieces, in turn, was worn under a red coat with yellow circles, and a scroll on his back. "I was not aware of your presence, Jiraiya-sensei," Hiyashi stated with only a hint of admiration. "I'll need to train my eyes better. To be able to call upon your clan's Kekkei Genkei is a feat in itself, Hiyashi. You've grown since you were a genin beside Minato and Tuchi," said Jiraiya proudly. "The 4th and Old Man Ichiraku were on the same team as you?" Naruto pointed accusingly at him. "Yes, Minato Namikaze, the yellow flash of the leaf, and Tuchi Ichiraku, the butcher blade of the leaf, alongside Hiyashi Hyuga, head of the Hyuga clan of the leaf, were all trained under the envy of men everywhere, the toad sage of Mount Myoboku, the gallant ninja, Jiraiya." He shouted to Naruto, taking up his pose. The entire council merely shook their heads, all thinking that Jiraiya hasn't changed a bit. Naruto, however, was in contemplation, envy of everywhere, gallant. "I got it. So, what you're saying is that you're a pervert?" Naruto asked with a deadpanned expression. The council room went silent, all of them staring dead at Naruto, their faces expressionless. Only a moment later did anything happen. Jiraiya's face vaulted, and the rest burst into laughter, except for Jiraiya, who was the indirect target of their laughter, and Naruto, Spyro, and Cinder, whom were outside of the inside joke. No one was safe from the contagious laughter. Even the ever-stoic Danzo was wholeheartedly chuckling. After 5 minutes of the council laughing, Jiraiya brooding and pouting, and Naruto, Spyro and Cinder looking clueless. "Naruto, my boy, you never cease to surprise us all," said the old man affectionately. "Indeed," agreed Hiyashi, still chuckling. "Says the guy whose clan with their all-seeing eyes couldn't see a kid in Kill Me Orange paint an entire monument in broad daylight until he was finished." Jabbed the woman with the dog. This made the room again burst into laughter. This time, Jiraiya's and Hiyashi's roles were switched and Naruto was included in their laughter. "Who is this kid? I'd like to get his autograph for Sparks," asked Cinder, chuckling a little bit. "That kid would be me, Naruto Uzumaki, the next Hokage," he shouted, pointing at himself with his thumb. Jiraiya was looking at Naruto fondly. "He may have Minato's body, but he has Kushina's spirit." "Now then," Jiraiya said, clapping his hands together for emphasis. "Let me see the contract, kid. I should be able to look at the formula," he said, holding out his hand for the scroll. However, Naruto couldn't miss another jab. "Better not mess up my scroll, pervy sage," he said as he reluctantly handed him the scroll. This brought about another round of laughter. Spyro and Cinder still the awkward ones. Jiraiya grumbled something under his breath about, "Damn disrespectful brats," before he set to work. He grabbed the scroll by the opening flap and spun around, unraveling it, swinging it similar to a morning star. When it hit the end with a loud snap, he flung it down in the center of the room. Revealing an hourglass, he asked to himself, though everyone heard him. Surely enough, there was an hourglass symbol, right where the array for the summoning. A summoning contract has halfway through all the scroll paper a sealing array that which, when unraveled, will reveal a formula for the summoned clan. Each clan has a unique key code which is embedded into the array, so that when one signs the contract, they are keyed into that code, as to prevent mix-ups, such as summoning something you aren't contracted with, or being sucked into the summoned clan's domain, like Jiraiya was. He slapped the hourglass and pumped chakra into it, and it started to glow. Bright. "Ah, my eyes!" Hiyashi screamed as he shielded his eye and dived under the table, and cut his chakra flow from his eyes completely and locked the nodes along the eyes, temporarily blinding him until he unblocks them. The rest without an ocular jutsu shunned away from the light. Spyro and Cinder covered themselves with their wings. When the light died down, all were surprised. The contract was gone, especially when a familiar face had shown themselves. And he was very much different. "Ignitus!" Spyro shouted with unbridled joy as he went to his mentor's floating image. Cinder ran, albeit slower, behind him, but still rushing over to the former Four Guardian. "Ah, Spyro, Cinder, it's so good to see you again," he called with an echo from his spectral image, his voice brimming with compassion. Ignitus, when I thought you died, Spyro started with tears in his eyes, unable to look to him. The council stayed quiet at these developments, especially Naruto, and begrudgingly, Danzo, who believed he would get more information if he stayed quiet. It is okay, young dragon. What matters is that you stopped Malfour and you saved our world, he said kindly. I apologize for interrupting, called Sarutobi from his pedestal. But I'm afraid I must ask who you are. I could ask you the same thing, friend, said Ignitus cheekily, but with no disrespect evident in his voice. The Hokage chuckled. Very well, I am Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage, regent of the village hidden in the leaves, in the land of fire. I am the strongest person in this village. I am known as the god of shinobi for battlefield prowess, as well as the professor, for being a master of every technique this village has to offer. Ignitus bowed before introducing himself. I am Ignitus, former fire guardian of the dragons, for I was the strongest fire element user of my race and generation, as well as being the chronicler for this new age, making me responsible for keeping and archiving the books of time. Because of my new title, I now hold sway over time itself, he said graciously. He also taught me everything I know, Spyro butted in. I see, Sarutobi said nodding. Then surely you can tell us why your student and his mate-to-be are here. I am afraid I do not know, perhaps Spyro himself can answer, he said turning everyone's eyes back onto the purple dragon. Jiraiya's prophecy, he squeaked from nervousness. And that prophecy is classified as an X-class secret, he said seriously with his arms crossed and his face as hard as stone. Not even Sensei knows its exact details, and it's going to stay that way. Looking pointedly at the head of the council. Well then, I guess, we have no choice then, Hiruzen sighed. Thank you, Ignitus, we wish you good tidings, he said bowing to the much larger dragon's image. Spyro, Cinder, you're to stay with Spyro for the time being, since the contract disappeared. You will also be tested on your abilities by one of my best shinobi, Kakashi Hitaki, at the memorial training ground. Depending on your abilities, you will be given a rank of genin, a rookie, chunin, a journeyman, or a jonin, a professional, if you choose to accept, stated Sarutobi. Are you going to put them under your rule, Sarutobi? Ignitus growled. Somewhat. I apologize, Ignitus, but it is the only way I can protect them while they're here. Hiruzen uttered while bowing again. Fine, but I warn you, as well as this village. If either Spyro or Cinder are harmed by anyone in this place, not even death will stop me from burning this place to ash, he said before disappearing, leaving something behind him. Crystals? Asked Naruto eyeing the glowing, multicolored formation in the center of the room with only the slightest of avarice. Those are spirit gems, Spyro said walking over to it alongside Cinder. They split where Spyro stopped and Cinder left to go to the other side of the large gem form, about 10 feet away from the cluster each. The both charged forward at the same time and attacked the structure. Everyone there was sorry to see such beauty be destroyed, but they were obviously doing this with a purpose, so they stayed back. However, a certain clan head had his Byakugan active. Those gems look like they're made from something more pure than chakra, Hiyashi thought. Jiraiya was looking at it from a sage's perspective, however. They're made from something almost kin to natural energy. I wonder if I'd be able to enter sage mode with one of those, the toad sage thought. They all watched intently at the two dragons, seemingly dangling together while they beat the crystal. As they broke, the gems lit up and flew into their bodies and disappearing when they touched scale. When the crystal was completely broken, they noticed some changes in the dragons, small but noticeable. Their scales seemed to be brighter, their horns and talons looked like polished silver and gleaming gold, respectively. Their eyes shone with hidden power, made stronger through what the gems they absorbed. What were those exactly, you two? Shikaku asked, his eyes narrowed in suspicion. They are spirit gems, a gift from the ancestors themselves. They pass along their energy, their knowledge, their spirit, in the form of these. They are our life source, Spyro, repeating the words once spoke to him long ago. They also appear where dragons are to replenish them, Cinder added. So should we expect for these gems to appear all over the place? Inoichi asked. Possibly, Spyro told truthfully. Where will they appear? Hiruzen asked. I do not need crystals showing up all over the village. Where we fight or stay for a prolonged period of time, Cinder said, knowing more about the gems than Spyro. They'll also sometimes appear as monotonic depending on the kind of gem. There are different kinds? Danzo asked. Yes. Red gems heal, green gems restore energy for our elements, blue gems are the spirit powers that make us even stronger sometimes, and purple are the most dangerous, Cinder said. Why would that be? Asked Sume, curious about these beautiful, magic, mineral. They're condensed fury energy, which will become very powerful if anyone but a dragon tries to use them, Cinder said. Remember what happened to the apes she worked with while she was Malefor's slave, especially Gaul. Damn, so only try it with the red gems then to be safe, Jiraiya thought, thinking that if he tried absorbing the natural energy from a fury gem, he'll just end up killing himself. Very well, we'll tell you if we see any of them then, Hiruzen said. Now go home, everyone. Meeting adjourned. As Naruto was strolling through the marketplace, the villagers were looking on in shock. He actually had companions at his side. On his left was a pair that was obvious couple that made both men and women look in envy of their beauty. They were walking arms interlinked and confident. They both could not be older than 13. The female of the couple was average height for her age. Her midnight hair flowed down to her waist and framed her angular face. Her emerald-like eyes shone with confidence and danger, but most of all hidden power. She wore a kimono top that was darker than her hair and blacker than holy midnight. The lecherous men were scorning at the magenta cloth that covered her top's opening, blocking them from seeing a bit of her modest bust. Her legs were covered by pants that were a darker shade than her top, and matched her hair. A standard-issue shinobi weapons pouch was strapped on her right thigh. It was obvious that, from her figure of near perfection, many people would believe that, if it were possible, a goddess was walking among them. This young woman was on the arm of a young man tall for his age and looked like a king among men if there ever was one. His face was regal, his dark blonde hair neatly trimmed just above his eyebrows. His amethyst eyes shone with a humble confidence, but was layered with protectiveness and the same hidden power in his companion. His royal purple coat over his black shirt was covering a strong figure, not overly muscled, but not without them. He had a darker shade of purple for his pants as well as a standard-issue pouch on his waist. The young man walking before them looked like he would make the daimyo bow before him. This young couple also sported a pair of matching necklaces. Both of them a dragon's head, but jeweled different. The girl's was gold with an amethyst body and another different kind of purple quartz eyes, while her lover had one that was silver, with an onyx body and emerald eyes. Why they were walking with the imprisoned nine tails was beyond them. Before they could separate the demon from the regal couple, he took to the rooftops with them following. When they landed in the training ground they were met by an unusual cast of characters. The clan heads were all there of course, as well as Jiraiya, the Hokage, and the elders, Kaharu, Homura, and Danzo. But with them was the unusual. The first man had silver hair that stuck up at an angle. He had his headband covering his left eye, and wore a mask that covered his lower face. The only part of it visible was his right eye, and it had a lazy look in it and was stuffed in an orange book. He wore the standard shinobi uniform otherwise, an olive green flak jacket, a dark blue, long-sleeved shirt and pants of the same shade as the shirt. "Ah, Spyro, Cinder you've arrived," said the Hokage. He then noticed the orange-clad ninja. "Naruto, you should be taking your registration photo, why are you here?" "I sent a shadow clone in my place, I want to see this," Naruto replied with enthusiasm. Hiruzen pondered this for a moment. "I suppose, but stay out of the way, understand? You got it, old man," he stated with a wink and salute. Lord Third then turned to Naruto's companions. "This will be a test on how well you can do in combat, you don't have to win, but you shouldn't lose either. I and the elders will judge you as well as your opponent, Kakashi," he said gesturing to the aforementioned. Kakashi lazily looked up from his book. "Oh, are we starting?" he said a bit abruptly. "Yes, Kakashi, we are," Homura said impatiently. "Your objective to defeat your opponent as fast as you can. Do not hold back. The same is to you Kakashi, barring lethal force. Understood?" Hiruzen asked the participants as Naruto went to his side. Both sides nodded, after which so did he. "Then, begin." Hiruzen started the match. Spyro rushed forward and started to kick and punch at Kakashi, who easily blocked each and every attack. "You sure you're as powerful as Lord Hokage led me to believe? You're fighting like a genin." He kicked Spyro in the stomach and sent him back right as Cinder dived forward with a leg sweep. Kakashi easily jumped over that and jumped back a few yards. How the heck are we going to able to fight in these forms? Cinder yelled frustrated. To answer her cry, Jiraiya yelled out from the sidelines, "Release the ceiling layers." Remembering, Spyro and Cinder charged up their energy and each became engulfed in aura, purple for Spyro and black for Cinder. When the auras dispelled, their bodies and their clothes had changed. Spyro's coat curled over his shoulders like a cape and was left wearing a muscle shirt, Cinder the same with her shirt, but was replaced by a magenta tank top. They both grew talons on their hands and feet and small horns on their heads, but Cinder had a couple on her neck. "Your best seal work yet, Jiraiya," Hiruzen commented. Jiraiya nodded. Kakashi narrowed his eyes at this. He was told he was fighting dragons, not kids with a few seals. "Getting a few new features isn't going to help you," he said, slightly arrogant. This was his mistake. Cinder and Spyro surged forward. Cinder attacked high and Spyro low, and sent him flying into a nearby tree. As soon as he was separated from the ground, different colored gems burst from the points where he stricken. The gems flew into their bodies, ready for another strike. Didn't expect that. But if I knew I was carrying such beautiful jewels, I would have gone to the pawn shop. "Trust me, you'll be seeing more than just gems before this over," Cinder said, her voice smooth. "I'd bet, but I'm not much of a gambler," he said, digging himself out of the tree. "But now it's my turn," he said, diving forward in a blur. He reappeared in front of the two. "Allow me to teach you the basics about being a shinobi." He then punched them in the gut, causing them to spit up and get knocked back. Shinobi Tactics Lesson 1. Taijutsu, the martial arts. They landed on their feet and engaged themselves in a bout with Kakashi being in the middle. Kakashi blocked or parried every punch, kick, knee, and elbow with some effort. He tried ducking and dodging, but he didn't have any room to dodge as much. And when he was able to and did, they simply redirect their attack. Their teamwork is impeccable. He was able to use a quick replacement jutsu and was swapped himself with a nearby boulder. When Spyro landed a punch the boulder shattered. Spyro's hand was emblazoned in a forest green glow. They turned their backs to each other and looked for Kakashi. That is when they heard a voice in their heads, Kakashi's voice. "Your taijutsu is impressive, but moving on to lesson 2. Genjutsu, the illusion arts," the voice said before their world dissolved around them. They turned around to find the other not there. "Spyro, where are you?" Cinder shouted to the darkness. In a moment she found herself back in the clearing, but something was off. It was dusk, instead of midday. She was about to move around, but she heard an all-too-familiar roar. She looked to the sky and saw herself, back when Malefor corrupted her and twisted her into an adult form. She took up a stance, and began to charge her shadow element. "A persistent little fella, aren't ya?" her tainted form taunted as it landed. "Resisting our master and me for so long. I'm impressed. You're no longer who I am. The Dark Master was defeated by me and Spyro. You no longer exist," Cinder calmly said back. "You're right, for now. Our master will be freed, it is only a matter of time, you know," the corrupted Cinder stated. "If he could escape convexity, he could escape anywhere. He escaped with your help, without anyone to corrupt at the center of the planet. I'd say he's pretty much helpless and trapped." At this, the dark dragon charged and Cinder screamed, the sound waves visible in a dark crimson. The world around her turned to waves, and she found herself back in the clearing. It was daylight and Spyro was visibly shaken while Kakashi was clear on the other side of the field holding his ears. Spyro had released the next later and grew his wings and tail, his shirt and coat gone, and his golden chest that contrasted with his purple scales was heaving. His eyes were pinpoints and were leaking tears. The purple was slowly leaking black smoke, but Cinder knew better. He was dangerously close to unleashing the darkness in him. "Spyro, are you okay?" Cinder said soothingly, her hand on his scaled shoulder. "I was shown Ignitus's death, voices saying that it was my fault," he said, his voice little more than a whisper. "Spyro, it's okay. Ignitus sacrificed himself, it was his choice." "And you saw last night that he's okay," she whispered back. "I know, it was terrifying though," he trailed off. "I'm sure it was, but remember, Kakashi said it was an illusion he put on us. Let's get him back for it, shall we?" she said with a grin. Spyro's eyes widened a moment and smirked right back. Cinder became emblazoned in a black aura again, and her cape split in two and started to grow into her wings. Her skin turned black, her horns grew and lengthened. Her face narrowed and angled into a snout. Her tank top shrunk and fit itself tightly around her upper chest, exposing her belly, which had turned the same shade of magenta as her tank top was. "Let's," confirmed Spyro as they faced their opponent. "Since you were able to pass lessons 1 and 2, I guess it's time for lesson 3. Ninjutsu, the ninja arts, as well as my specialty," Kakashi said as he lifted up his headband, revealing his left eye. It was scarred directly across. It reminded Spyro and Cinder eerily of Gaul. He opened it and revealed a red iris with 3 tomo around the pupil. The tomo seemed to spin around the center. Naruto from the sidelines saw it. "Hey, what's with his eye?" he asked to anyone in particular. "That is the Kenkei Genkei of the Uchiha clan, the Sharingan," said the old Hokage. "It allows the wielder to have perfect vision with the use of an extra 3 pupils and can analyze anything it sees and memorizes it perfectly. With that eye, Kakashi has copied over 1,000 different techniques. It is what gives him the aliases, Copycat Kakashi, hero of the Sharingan." "Whoa, wait, Uchiha? That jerk Sasuke is going to have that? Why is he so lucky?" Naruto exclaimed, steam rolling off of him in anger. Jiraiya looked on with a smile. "Kid, when you know who you have for a dad." Kakashi's hands went into a blur and finally stopped with his hands outward. "Water style. Water dragon bullet," he exclaimed as water rose from the nearby lake and took shape around Kakashi in the form of an oriental dragon with glowing yellow eyes. He waved his arms toward the 2 opposite to him and the water dragon followed his arm and went straight towards them. Spyro dived in front and held out his hands and opened his mouth wide, revealing many fangs. Flames burst from his mouth and palms intensely. The moment they made contact with the dragon, it began to steam and evaporate. The flame's heat was so intense that the very air hissed from the heat. In moments the water dragon shrunk in half, but was still able to hit them both and sent them flying backwards. Cinder flipped and started to use her wings to take flight while Spyro encased himself with the same forest green aura earlier and became a massive, mossy boulder with spikes. He landed to the ground with a loud thud as Cinder flew straight towards Kakashi with a blood-red orb hovering in front of her mouth. She let the ball burst and came from it were more orbs that left black and sanguine vapor trails and flew around him. The moment they hit him and exploded, he felt the tingle of fear going up his spine. He was paralyzed as he saw a black-haired boy in blue clothes being crushed under a boulder. His body bloody and still that warm smile on his face, even in death. Obito, he thought. His vision soon shifted and he saw from a third-person view as he saw himself impale his own teammate with his original jutsu. Rin, he mentally screamed as the vision broke and he was nearly crushed by a speeding rock. He quickly jumped a good 25 in the air and shot in mid-air to the other side of the clearing. When he landed, Spyro and Cinder turned to face him and their eyes widened. Kakashi had his legs spread apart, his right wrist being clutched in his left hand and was glaring at the two in pure, unadulterated rage. The killing intent he was leaking was almost inhuman. Everyone there was sweating bullets. In moments, the sounds of birds chirping were coming from Kakashi's direction and they snapped out of it. A ring of chakra was visible around the Jonin, electricity shooting from an orb in his hand. "This," he said gesturing to his hand, "is the only jutsu I can truly call my own. It has been called many names. The Chidori, 1,000 chirping birds, and the lightning blade because I used this to split a bolt of lightning in half. And now, it will be your end." He dashed forward towards Cinder poised to strike. Each and every shinobi on the sidelines tried to move, but Naruto reached Kakashi first as Spyro rushed in front of Cinder. Kakashi's lightning-enhanced thrust went straight through Spyro and into Cinder. Naruto was blown back by the lightning and was sent being impaled by a cluster of spirit gems. Kakashi, covered in blood from head to toe, tossed the two dragons off his arms toward Naruto, before he promptly fainted. Jiraiya and Hiruzen rushed over to Cinder, Naruto, and Spyro. They leaned over each and felt for a pulse. They felt none. Jiraiya looked panicked and without seals summoned a small, green toad. From his mouth, of all places. "Jiraiya? What's the big deal?" Jeritora asked indignantly. "No time." Just give me the key or I'll make sure you won't be able to guard any secrets. Jiraiya barked at the tiny amphibian. Geritora wisely went to his full length and unrolled his abdomen, revealing a scroll with an intricate seal design. Jiraiya, is that what I think it is? Hiruzen asked concerned. Yes, sensei, and it's our best chance at saving all of them, Jiraiya retorted as he slammed his hand into the small box near the top of the scroll and rolling up his sleeve. The scroll glowed for a moment, and then Geritora slammed himself back down Jiraiya's throat. Jiraiya then rolled up Naruto's shirt revealing the nine-tails seal. He slammed his arm, tattooed with the seal design previously on the scroll, and started twisting. Naruto's seal darkened then stopped. Everyone get back, Jiraiya screamed as Naruto became emblazoned in a faint orange aura before exploding in a burst of chakra. The chakra covered him in a cloak that took the shape of a fox. He instantly grew 3 tails and a pair of fox ears. Spyro and Cinder were at point-blank range and were exposed to the demonic chakra. They were afloat in the chakra, their wounds healing and regenerating before their very eyes. The crystal that Naruto was on broke at the base and started integrating itself with Naruto. At that moment, they all heard a voice that would haunt them. Impressive move, Grease Monkey. The only reason I'm healing this brat is because your damn student had to link my existence with his life force. You're gutsy, I'll give you that, though, human. I'm also doing the brat a favor. In return, I want to make sure that the eye infection of a bloodline stops with Sparky over there, said a voice booming as mountains and ominous as anything. The crystal in Naruto's chest dissolved and his chest repaired itself, as well as the holes in Spyro's and Cinder's. The Nine Tails is right, Jiraiya, you truly are gutsy, the third Hokage just said exasperated. Jiraiya had a cheeky grin as he relocked the seal. I actually just guessed, if I was wrong then were we all screwed? He said sheepishly rubbing his head. Everyone in the clearing face vaulted hard enough to leave craters. We should take them to the hospital just in case though. Everyone agreed and Jiraiya reactivated Spyro's and Cinder's transformation seals and carried them, while Lord Third carried his surrogate grandson. Meanwhile, in a training field clear across the village, a young boy was inspired by a perverted clone defeating a perverted special Junin before it dispelled. I swear, boss, we will one day fight for the title of Hokage. The village will finally know the name, Konohamaru Sarutobi, shouted the young boy. When the trio of out-cold teenagers arrived in the hospital, the ones who brought them there were in for a shock courtesy of the head doctor. Lord Hokage, they're perfectly healed and healthy, they just aren't responding to anything we do to wake them up, said the young man. Anbu, fetch me a bowl of Ichiraku ramen stat, ordered the Hokage to the shadows. A black blur went out the window and came back in an instant with a steaming bowl in hand. 1. Uzumaki Special, Lord Hokage, the masked ninja stated before returning to his place hidden. Hiruzen promptly picked up the bowl and fanned the aroma towards the unconscious blonde. There was still no response. We have a problem, Hiruzen said, his voice filled with dread. When Naruto came to, he was mildly surprised. Where the hell am I? Okay, more than mildly. He, Spyro and Cinder were all on a stone platform that seemed to be floating in outer freaking space. The 2 dragons in human form were still passed out. To the left were platforms that had spinning scale-like platforms leading to what seemed to be a giant ruin wall with a couple of light red banners. To his left he saw a giant cage that he could see inside to the distance. Okay, I really need to lay off the sci-fi, fantasy manga. Naruto muttered to himself in disbelief. Behind him he heard groaning, which told him he wasn't dreaming. What happened? Cinder moaned holding her head and supporting herself with her other hand. She blinked her eyes to adjust them to become aware of her surroundings. Hey, Cinder, you okay? Naruto asked. She didn't even attempt to move her aching head. Naruto, where are we? I'm actually hoping you could tell me, the blonde admitted. He looked around again. He narrowed his eyes at the cage. Something about it seems familiar. The brunette looked around and saw that this place was familiar, but couldn't place a finger on it. Not sure, seems familiar though. They looked to the dark blonde passed out next to them. Naruto had a powerful urge to draw on his face with a marker, but suppressed it due to the seriousness. Hey, Spyro. Wakey wakey eggs and basey, he said, while shaking the unconscious form of the purple teen. He remained out cold. Cinder then had an idea. She allowed a feral smirk to form on her features, enough for the whiskered prankster to grin. "Let me try something." She leaned down close to Spyro's ear and whispered something low enough that Naruto's acute hearing couldn't tell what she said. "Wha?" Spyro bolted straight up, his face red as a blue-haired girl's from his class. His eyes were the size of pins, and his nose was bleeding slightly. Naruto laughed, thinking of his perverted jutsu, while Cinder just giggled and tapped his face lightly. "Cinder, what did you do that for?" he said, embarrassed by what he heard. He only got a smirk in response. "Two reasons. One was to wake you up, the other to see your reaction," she said, looking at her fingernails, not trying at all to look innocent. "You have a perverted mind, Canyon." The male pouted. She just grinned again. "And you love me anyway, Spy-Fi," she stuck her tongue out. Naruto stifled a laugh and looked at Spyro with a lopsided grin. "Spy-Fi?" Spyro glared at Naruto with a force to be reckoned with, but Naruto had worse. "Tell." "No." "One." Cinder pouted, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Ah, are you ashamed of me, Spyro?" Spyro looked to her with wide eyes. No. "Oh, of course not, Cinder," he stuttered with a light blush. Naruto and Cinder started laughing. Soon Spyro was laughing as well. For a moment, they weren't a Jinchuriki or two dragon saviors, just three friends for a moment, forgetting their troubles. Soon, they noticed another, older voice chuckling. "Ah, to be young and feel love's keen sting," said the familiar voice. They all recognized it immediately. "Hey, you're that fire dragon guardian guy, Igneal, right?" Naruto exclaimed. "Ignitus, young one," corrected the disembodied voice. "And I'm sure you're wondering where you are, Cinder, Naruto. Spyro has been here before." Spyro looked around for a moment. "We're in the Celestial Caves, beneath the White Isle, the home of the Chronicler," he explained to his companions. "Well, whatever it is, it looks like someplace someone would go on a LSD trip," Naruto said in a tone that made the witnesses present wonder if he insulting the place or complimenting it. "In any case, I brought you three here to bring new powers to the surface," Ignitus explained. "Are you going reteach me dragon time, Ignitus?" Spyro asked. "Please, whelp. In that damned village, if you were to unlock the power of time, you'd be forced to have more than one mate. Wouldn't be surprised if those withered flesh bags are thinking about it," deadpanned a voice coming from the cage. The trio looked to the cage and a figure move into the dim light of the caverns. The face was vulpine, covered in orange fur. Large ears on the top of the head with black inner lobes twitched occasionally to the humming originating from everywhere and nowhere. A large, somewhat moist-looking nose on a snout that was twisted into a cross between a smirk and snarl. What truly and utterly frightened the teens were the bloody crimson, silted eyes that radiated superiority, ungodly power, light amusement, and most of all, malice and bloodlust. "The nine-tailed fox," Naruto whispered as he looked on at the bane of his existence, behind a golden cage that ascended to the heavens. Locked behind those golden bars in two doors with a simple tag that had the kanji for seal. "Quiet, Vulpine. If it wasn't for Lord Namikaze's seal work being nothing short of divinity binding you to Naruto's vitality, you would never know these most holy grounds," Ignitus snarled with the fury only a being of fire can muster. "If it wasn't for this seal, I'd be free. Perhaps I'd even find a way to this pathetic place physically to make sure the chronicler is downgraded from legendary to merely legend," the fox stated like fact. "Silence, if you please then," Ignitus calmed, but anger was still present. "Whatever, lizard," the fox muttered as he moved back into the shadows. With the great being falling silent, the teens let out a breath they did not know they were holding. "I am sorry, all of you." The nine tails, being bound by the seal to Naruto's life force and perhaps soul, it is here as well, Ignitus' voice explained. "It's fine, man," Naruto put off with a wave. The dragons present were not convinced, especially Cinder. She had more experience with inner demons than anyone. Granted, Naruto's was literal, but still. Ignitus, though filled with doubt to the golden blonde's facade, decided to change the subject. "In any case, the powers you've unlocked with the almost fatal wounds you received at the hands of the one Kakashi. You three unlocked powers non-native to you normally. Then what are these powers? How we get them?" Cinder asked in her usual tone. "In soon time, Cinder," Ignitus said with what they could feel was a smile, given they couldn't see his face. As for the second question, it was due to the intervention of the sage Jiraiya loosening the seal on the 9 tails enough to cause a burst of demonic chakra to heal you, with the 9 tails having enough control over it to grant you these powers. Oh, well, I guess we should tell 9 tails, thank you, then, said Spyro with a straight face of shock. Just don't expect me to save your ass again, whelpling, the voice from the cage grumbled. They heard Ignitus sigh irritably. Spyro, Cinder, you're to go past the cage to meet those who will get you started with these powers. Naruto, you will go to the opposite direction to the red pool. Naruto looked downcast, but didn't complain. Spyro then asked the obvious. Who will be teaching us? You will see soon, young dragon. Now go, Ignitus said with what Spyro just knew was a fond smile. We'll meet again soon, Naruto, Cinder said, giving the blonde a hug. Spyro nodded behind them with a smile. The two turned around as Naruto already started to leap platform to the far-off bastion. You ready to get up close and personal with a real demon, Cinder? The purple teen asked as he removed the first seal. She smirked and looked boldly to the golden cage. He has nothing on Malefor. Meanwhile, Leaf Village Council Chambers. Hiruzen Sarutobi was in a tight spot. Danzo had the gall to say that Spyro and Cinder should be ordered into the Clan Restoration Act for their draconic powers to be used for the village. What's more were that some of the Shinobi Council members were actually agreeing with him. I must agree with Danzo, Lord Hokage, they have unique powers that would be unrivaled and unheard of anywhere in the elemental nations. Sho, head of the Kohaku clan stated. Though there's some of the clan, himself included, live in their own compound well outside the village, most live inside the walls, enough for them to summon their clan head for a council meeting. Power always comes at a price. Sho, what price would you be willing to pay for this? Unkai of the Kurama clan stated with conviction, he and his niece knowing full well the price of power. Not to mention, we're not even sure if dragons and humans would even be able to mate, let alone at all, Shikaku drawled bored. As well as the fact that Spyro and Cinder are mates already, the third added. I'm sure they can be persuaded to have multiple mating partners, friend, Danzo said with a devious smirk. I call for a vote. All those in favor of placing the dragons under Title II, Article H? All 3 of the elders raised their hands, along with Hiyashi, Sho, along with the 4 of the newly appointed civilian council members. Danzo was not pleased, but didn't show it. Against? The Hokage sounded. Sume, Inoichi, Choza, Shikaku, Mebuki Haruno, Unkai, Shibi, and the remaining 2 civilian council members, Tuchi Ichiraku, newly appointed, and Buki. With Danzo's vote counting twice as elder and head of the Shimura clan, and mine counting thrice as Hokage and head of the Sarutobi clan, the vote is 10-12 against the proposal. The dragons will not be placed under the CRA, the Hokage proclaimed. The council is now dismissed. Meeting adjourned. With that, the civilians left through the side door to their various businesses. The shinobi merely used the body flicker jutsu to exit quickly. Kaharu and Homura left through the tower door, likely to do some administrative work, leaving only Danzo and the Hokage in the room. Why did you block my vote, Hiruzen? The dragons have the possibility of manipulating time itself. That power must belong to Leaf, the Warhawk asked. I realize that, but there are many reasons that we cannot do this. One being that if Ignitus were to find out that the village turned his students into what essentially amounts to breeding machines, there would be no doubt in my mind that there would be no Leaf Village left, if a land of fire at all, Hiruzen said with absolute seriousness. Ignitus is but one dragon, our ninja could defeat him, Danzo said. He said he was the strongest user of the fire element in his species, as well as being the chronicler, has sway over the passage of time. There is no telling what kind of power he has at his disposal. Best case scenario with that would be that we'd be nothing but ash and we would truly never know it, the Hokage said with a drag from his pipe and his eyes closed. As well as Shikaku's reasoning is also correct. The chances of us being biologically compatible are astronomical. The crippled elder didn't like it, but his old friend was right. He just needed the chance to see for himself. The possibility is too tempting to let slip through his hands. Very well, Hiruzen, I had only thought due to Jiraiya's seals the biology could be changed. Seals are very unpredictable. I agree the possibility is there, but it is too slim to waste resources, and to risk the ire of not only of a protective teacher turned pseudo-deity, but 2 lovers. the third said with another drag of his pipe. Danzo gave a nearly silent snort, but the god of shinobi could still hear it. Still think emotions only serve to weaken a ninja? No one can ever stop feeling, old friend. I pray you learn this soon. The professor walked away to the eternal battle with the bane of his existence, leaving the veteran to his thoughts, hoping he might have reached him this time. With Spyro and Cinder, the two of them were leaping from platform to platform directly towards the sealed cage. Cinder was trying to pass the time with some talk. So what do you think this power is, a new element? I don't know, Cinder, we'll have to find out, Spyro said in reply, his eyes on the spaces between the platforms so that he wouldn't fall. If you get there, whelp, the fox said with malice as the cage began to glow a radiant orange. The glow began to solidify into tendrils and began to launch from the cage small bits at a time to the platforms. The demonic chakra solidified into clones of the fox except for the fact that they were smaller than normal foxes and had one tail. Cinder didn't hesitate to use her suffocating shadow fire as well as Spyro using his dragon's fire, their strongest elements. The fox duplicates gasped for breath while they were burned to ash. What was that, fox? Cinder called the vulpine demon. A test. Want to go further? Deal with it, said the fox not showing his face. Cinder began to growl, but didn't let it get the best of her. Fine, bring it on. Cinder began to charge her element of fear to crush her enemies beneath their own fear and terror. The black dragon exhaled at the newly formed foxes, only for nothing to happen. She tried her wind, nothing. Her poison element, nothing. Even convexity had no effect. The fox bellowed once more. Bawahaha, I locked away your elements and weakened them, whelps. You can only use your natural elements now. Spyro tried his electricity, ice, earth, convexity and all had the same effect, nothing. Damn it, fox. Cinder yelled angrily shaking her fist at the cave. Spyro put his hand on his mate to be's shoulder soothingly. Nothing we haven't faced before, Cinder. We will get them back. Cinder reached her hand back to place it over his. I know, just wished these things didn't happen to us. She moved from his grip, then ran and jumped to the next platform. We won't get them back standing here, come on, she said with a grin. Spyro merely shook his head and smiled. Cinder was going to be the death of him. With Naruto, the orange-clad Jinchuriki landed on the final platform on the library, panting from his exertion. Geez, that was loopy. Naruto fell many times, but ended up falling straight back on the platform where he initially awoken. Hey, Ignition, I'm here, Naruto shouted. Ignitus, Naruto, my name is Ignitus, the voice sounded out. Now that you've arrived, it is time to begin unlocking this new power. Alright, what's first? Naruto asked tempestuously. Step onto the platform and concentrate only on voice, Ignitus said. Naruto stepped onto the white platform and closed his eyes. Look within yourself, deep within. You are not just part of the universe, but the universe is part of yourself. Awaken the universe within. The platform began to faintly glow and the wind began to move around Naruto. Spyro and Cinder made it to the platform behind the cage. It was covered in a faint, orange, glowing cloud. They were just outside of this mysterious mist. Your body is its armor? Ignitus continued. The platform's brilliance intensified. Spyro grabbed Cinder's hand and nodded at her. She nodded back. Your mind is its guide. The wind intensified. Spyro and Cinder came to the center of the mist where they found two more humans. Naruto? Cinder asked. Your soul is its door. Naruto began to rise off the platform. No, I am not Naruto, but very close. She and I both are. The man indicated to himself and the red-haired woman. Open them all, and it shall flow free. Naruto opened his eyes suddenly. Then who are you? Spyro questioned. We are his parents, Kushina said with a sad smile. Naruto screamed and the light blinded the caverns. By the time the light faded, Naruto was on the ground, in the fetal position, his eyes bloody. I apologize, Naruto. I had not thought of your human physiology to be so drastically different that it would cause this. Ignitus' voice sounded out, humbled. Don't worry about it. I've had worse, Naruto said as he got up, determinedly grinning. What's next? From Ignitus' chambers, he grew concerned. He should be worried about Naruto's almost totally disregard for pain and his recklessness. He made a point to read Naruto's history later. Now that we've awakened your element, now we find out what it is, the chronicler's voice sounded. Go through the threshold and go on the next platform. Alright, let's do this, Naruto said barely above a whisper. Naruto began to walk with a slight limp into the arch. As he made his way through the stone, he started to notice a slight glow to him, an orange glow. Hey, Mr. Chronicler, you doing this? Naruto said, referring to the glow around him. No, I am not. Part of the seal's design was that it leak out some of the Nine Tails chakra into your system and integrate it with your own. It accelerates your own healing factor, Ignitus explained. It is merely visible because of you being so close to the Nine Tails here. Oh, okay, Naruto mumbled, continuing his path forward, noticing that is getting easier to walk. The platform was still a ways off, and even with the rate his healing was going, it would take a bit to think about jumping to it. Alright, I'll just rest here for a bit. He unceremoniously plopped down to sit against a wall. Naruto closed his eyes and drifted off for a while. With Spyro and Cinder, I don't understand if you're Naruto's parents, then why aren't you with Naruto teaching him instead of Ignitus? Spyro asked, somewhat bitterly, as he wanted to spend time with his mentor, as well as concern for his friend. It is because we are the only one who can effectively teach you about chakra, the energy that now flows through your bodies, Minato explained. Believe me, I'd much rather spend time with Naruto and be with him, Kushina said. No offense to you too, of course. None taken, Cinder muttered. He is also not ready to know who we are yet, Minato said. Both Kushina and I made many enemies inside and out the village. In this case, ignorance is truly bliss for now. In any case, the chakra and crystal energy in your body are at some points melding together, at others repelling each other like a couple of magnets, Minato explained. What we'll be teaching you is to release them, separately, then together. When do we get started? Spyro asked. At this question, Minato and Kushina gave a set of almost out-of-character smirks. Minato snapped his fingers, and out of the golden mist, a great stone basin rose, between the two couples. Surrounding the concentric to the basin 5 platforms rose as well. Right now. Foundation headquarters, unspecified location, unknown time. You are the roosts of the great tree of the hidden leaf village, unseen, unheard, unsung. You are what truly protect this village. We are what keep the village healthy and alive. Even if the great tree falls, from us, from you, it would regrow stronger than ever. Dismissed. Danzo spoke to his personal army of emotionless soldiers. The foundation was established so that the leaf would always have a presence in the world, everywhere in the world. It would become the world tree. Number 012420, a moment. Danzo ordered one of his most junior agents before he left. I have a mission for you, one of vital importance. Yes, Lord Danzo? Number 012420 replied, bowing onto his knee. Though you are one of my youngest members, you are by far a very strong member of the organization. You will be doing a great service to the village in this mission, one that I myself would have trouble with, Danzo explained. My lord? Number 012420 asked. As you may know, the Academy's latest class is being assigned to their respective teams as we speak by Hiruzen. I have managed to integrate you into the team roster so that you will complete this mission, the Warhawk continued. Am I to monitor and possible assassinate the Jinchuriki, my lord? No, not yet. You are to monitor a female and find any weakness or strengths that may surface, Danzo explained. For this mission you will be posing as my adoptive son. I believe the proper term to use is, honored, my lord? Danzo internally smiled. You will take on the name, Sai, for this mission. You will be removing your mask for this as well. The newly dubbed Sai stood and removed his mask and revealed his pale face that contrasted with his dark hair and eyes. I accept this mission, he gave an almost eerie smile. Father, with Naruto, awaken. Ignitus's voice roared. I swear I didn't take all the instant ramen. Naruto exclaimed, waking, then realized where he was again. Oh, sorry Iggy. Must have dozed off, Naruto sheepishly apologized. Somewhere in the caverns, Ignitus's right eye was twitching in great frustration. For the very last time, Naruto Uzumaki. My name is Ignitus. Ignitus. Naruto flinched and reeled back at the sheer fury of the voice. He vigorously nodded his head. Now get over to the next platform soon. Ignitus boomed. Naruto started to weave in and out of the obstacles and the gaps. Ignitus felt a twinge of pride as a teacher. He thought to himself, I've still got it. What are these? Spyro asked, looking in awe of the strange altar. This is what we can equate to an element identifier, Spyro, Minato explained. Chakra. All chakra has some sort of affinity to one or more of the 5 natures: earth, water, fire, wind, and lightning. Minato lifted a finger for each element. They can reflect out personality and dictate what kind of jutsu we can learn. For example, I have an affinity for lightning, with some minor wind nature. And I have a water nature with wind also, Kushina added. Each village has its own way of identifying a chakra nature. In the leaf we use paper made from trees nurtured with chakra. The village hidden in the mist has a great fountain that shows changes in the water. I've heard that the sand village has some sort of secret oasis that has something in it to identify natures. This altar will tell us how much of each nature you have, and just how potent it is, Minato explained. Okay, let's do it then, Cinder said. You're not going to find out your natures just yet. Most wait until they are Chunin or higher rank to do so, Minato denied. Then why did you bring this out? Spyro asked somewhat irritably. To show you what is similar between our worlds. You now walk the path between them. You'll need to know the differences if you want to survive this road, Minato explained. Step into the basin and we'll teach to release your chakra and basic control as well. Spyro had to extend his leg far to step into the stone bowl. The moment he did, he felt a surge of unfamiliar energy. Wah! He exclaimed as tendrils of orange wind released itself from the basin, the chakra flaring in a whirlwind. Remain calm. This only the 9 tails chakra releasing itself from you and going back to the seal. This is what created and jump-started your chakra network, Kushina explained. Soon enough the orange had gone and was replaced by a mild blue color. Now try to focus the energy back into yourself, Kushina ordered. Spyro tried to feel it back in, but it only budged. The chakra was still wild and uncontrolled. He continued like this for another 3 minutes before saying, I can't, Mrs. Uzumaki. Focus on one thing, Spyro, Minato said. Like what? Spyro asked, his chakra flaring up more. Spyro, Cinder said. He turned to her and found his head grasped and taken into a kiss. Spyro melted into the kiss and soon, his chakras flaring became less and less until it was visible no longer. Cinder soon released the kiss and placed her brow against his, looking into his eyes and smiling. He smiled back and hopped out of the basin. Well done, Cinder, Kushina said, giving the black-haired girl a bear hug. Cinder now knew what a pimple felt like. You're up next, kiddo, Kushina said as she literally tossed Cinder in the basin. Upon landing, Cinder gave a sound of, oof, and instantly the Biju chakra started flaring from the bowl. She scrambled to her feet as quickly as she could and waited for the chakra to give into a noticeably dark shade of blue than Spyro's. She got control of it faster than Spyro did. Very well done, Cinder, Minato said, smiling and nodding. That's all the training we can give you. Your team leader will take care of the rest, I believe. Team leader? What do you mean? Spyro asked. Everything will be explained, Kushina said. Remember, not to tell Naruto that we know who we are yet. With that, a white light surrounded them and they saw Minato and Kushina waving them off before they were engulfed. The two of them woke up with a gasp in the hospital room. The first thing they noticed was that they were in pale blue hospital gowns. They turned and saw Naruto fully dressed and sitting on the windowsill and looking out the window uncharacteristically. He turned and saw them awake and smiled. Hey, guys, you're awake. The nurse is already coming with your clothes cuz I told her that you would be waking up after I did. After he said that, the Hokage, Jiraiya, and Kakashi walked in. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the latter, but made no charge at him. The 3 of them noticed this and felt varying degrees of guilt, Kakashi's the most. Welcome back, Spyro, Cinder, Naruto, the Hokage smiled, with unadulterated joy. He went over to Naruto and did something that he rarely did, but always wanted to chance given, he hugged Naruto. Do me a favor and try not to scare this old man again, my boy, Hiruzen said, not as the 3rd Hokage, but as a person genuinely relieved. Naruto hugged back somewhat awkwardly, still not completely used to contact, but glad the old man did. I'll try, Gigi. Now then, Hiruzen releasing the hug. Your team assignments are tomorrow. Naruto will show you the way to the academy. Kakashi stepped forward. Spyro, Cinder, Naruto, I would like apologize for earlier. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but it brought up horrible memories. I lost myself in my fear and anger and self-loathing. I nearly killed you and there is no excuse for what I did, so I'm deeply sorry." Kakashi fell to his knees and pushed his brow to the ground, bowing in apology. "I forgive you, Kakashi," Spyro said almost immediately. "Walking in the past and in regrets will only make us doubt ourselves. We should look forward and try to forgive ourselves for our past actions." Jiraiya smiled. "The kid has wisdom beyond his years. I should be the one apologizing, Kakashi. That attack uses fear itself as an element. What you did, while extreme, was a natural reaction." "I forgive you, too," Cinder said. They all looked to Naruto and knew he would be the X-factor in this. "I'm not sure how I feel, but it's done. Like Spyro said, no sense in living in the past. So, I guess I forgive you, but do it again you'll be burping Shu for months, if you catch my drift," Naruto said, crossing his arms. Kakashi got up and smiled under his mask that visualized itself won his lone eye. "I'm sort of counting on it." Hiruzen gave Spyro and Cinder their clothes. "Now, I'll go discharge the three of you. Go home and get some rest." The three elder ninjas started to walk out. But before he stepped out of the room, Jiraiya went back and tossed a key to Naruto. "I figured with that tiny apartment and 3 people, you could use some more room," Jiraiya said with a goofy grin. "See ya, later, brats." He closed the door behind him and waved with his free hand. They all looked at the key. "Well, that was nice of him," Cinder said. Spyro and Naruto could only nod, looking at the key in Naruto's hands. She looked to the two of them. "Can you guys go so I could change? Or do you want to watch?" Cinder asked, sounding completely serious. Naruto went out the door and Spyro to the bathroom so fast that both doors slammed. Cinder evilly chuckled. "Boys. So easily manipulated. Mention anything even close to mating and you have all their attention." 15 minutes later, the three of them were outside the hospital fully dressed. "The pervert could have at least told us the address," Naruto said. A plume of smoke came from the key and Naruto found himself pinching a folded piece of paper as well as the key. They unfolded it. Voice-activated seal, kids. Bada bing. The building is the red one just off the south side of the market, 5th floor, corner apartment. All of your crap is over there already, you can unpack it all. Enjoy. The Great Toad Sage, Jiraiya the Gallant and Gutsy. The three of them stared at it with a deadpanned expression. Cinder even face-palmed, and Naruto muttered something about perverts being idiots and pocketed the note. "Let's go, there isn't much, it won't take all day." With that they took to the rooftops and made a quick trip over to the market. "This is the place," Spyro said, looking at the tall, 6-story building. They stepped in and saw the superintendent sitting in the desk in the entryway. He looked up from his familiarly orange book. "Ah, Uzumaki. Master Jiraiya already came by with your things and has paid for a year's rent, maybe a year and a half," he said, looking almost lovingly at the book that they noticed had an autograph freshly inked on it. Thanks," they said, moving to the stairs. When they were out of earshot, Cinder decided to say what was on everyone's minds. "Why would he take that book as a 12 to 18 months rent?" "I saw that book once in the bookstore, complete smut," Naruto said, not saying more. "Then it seems porn better than money here," Cinder said. Spyro only shrugged. When they got to the apartment, Naruto reached for the doorknob. A seal appeared on the door and, like seeing a cartoon, bubble popped, making a floating ink message in front of the door. "Decided to furbish to apartment for you brats, as well as stocked. Eat your greens, kids." Read off Spyro. Below the message was a floating cartoon Jiraiya giving 2 thumbs up and a huge grin. Cinder glared and chopped the message and the ink ignited itself and burned away. They stepped in and walked around. The kitchen was fully stocked with beige countertops and white cupboards with silver-colored handles. On the counters were numerous boxes of a spice rack, coffee maker, toaster, rice steamer and numerous other kitchenwares. The floor was a smooth cream ceramic. The living room had a white leather couch and love seat against the wall cornering a black table that had a tall lamp behind it. "Guys, there's only 2 bedrooms, Naruto said from the master bedroom that had his little things sitting on a new bed. "So? Spyro and I will just share one," Cinder said nonchalantly. Spyro snapped his head to her, blushing. She saw this and giggled slightly. "We're not going to be mating anytime soon, so don't get too excited." Spyro's blush went down, but his cheeks were still pink. was all Naruto could say for a moment. I guess it's settled? Naruto asked awkwardly. They all nodded, made some instant ramen for an early dinner, and went to bed. The same thought was on all their minds. Why is it so hard to talk to people? The next day, Hidden Leaf Ninja Academy, 8 a.m. Spyro and Cinder followed Naruto to the academy, with the three of them sitting together. After being insulted by what looked like that dog lady from the council's son, whom Naruto named Kiba, they decided to sit in the back seats next to this blue-haired girl that kept blushing and playing with her fingers. Of course, everyone asked who they were. The cover story was that they were privately trained. They also were asked why someone who looked so noble and good-looking, Kiba, were walking in with someone like Naruto. Cinder merely said in her usual grace, "Red. Anger, he's our friend, you got a problem with it?" Everyone shut up after that. They were now waiting on Iruka-sensei to get here with team assignments for this class. They were sitting bored, a guy with black hair sat brooding. Every girl with the exception of Cinder and the blue hair were googly eyeing said brooder. There was someone eating chips, next to him spiky ponytail sleeping. That is when Kiba decided to throw everything to hell. He walked up to Cinder with a puppy smiling on his head, smug look on his face complete with a fang-full smirk. "Hey, babe, you want to go out to barbecue tonight after the team thing?" Cinder merely looked away while Spyro was glaring at Kiba. Kiba, being the mental playboy he was, decided to probe further. "Hey, can you hear me?" He decided to touch her shoulder. Spyro instantly grabbed his wrist tightly with his amethyst eyes burning. "She's not interested," he growled, having enough of this. Kiba wasn't even fazed, continuing to smile. "What, are you her boyfriend?" Naruto decided to intervene and grabbed Spyro's wrist and pushed Kiba away. "Dude, just leave, please." By now everyone was staring at the scene, amazed. For one, they saw the new guy had some speed. Second, and perhaps the most shocking, Naruto was being polite and calm. Kiba was surprised but not enough to deter. "This isn't your business, Uzumaki," he proclaimed as her moved to punch him. Cinder very quickly redirected his punch. Kiba flew back. Everyone was looking at Cinder in slight awe. Kiba was fairly skilled in taijutsu, so to throw him back was something. Unbeknownst to everyone, including Kiba, the blue-haired girl had pushed him with a little bit of force and a lot of chakra. "I'm sorry, Kiba, I'm not going to let you hurt Naruto so easily." Iruka came in when Kiba went flying and snapped his attention to the direction the boy came from. Why the hell was Kiba soaring through the air? "Naruto!" Iruka yelled. Naruto merely looked down and didn't say a word. Not the expected reaction. He tried to punch Naruto when he tried to intervene between Kiba and Spyro, so I redirected his punch, Cinder explained. "Then he tried asking me when it was obvious I wasn't interested," Cinder said. Iruka decided he didn't want to deal with the headache. He pulled Kiba up by his shoulder and told him to back to his seat. Which he did so grumbling. Now it was Iruka's favorite part of graduation, his speech. "Congratulations all of you for making it thus far in your shinobi training. Do not think, however, that the road ends here. There will be dangers you must face, enemies you cannot beat. Train hard, keep your fiends beside you, and remember the will of fire. Do these things and you will make the village hidden in the leaves proud." He looked around, and saw more than what he expected. He expected to see Sasuke brooding, Kiba and the girls not paying attention as usual. He knew Shino, Choji, and Hinata would be paying attention. He guessed that Spyro and Cinder would be too, but what he didn't expect was Naruto or Shikamaru paying attention. Each with eyes hard with determination in their own ways. He then heard a knock on the door. "Come in." Everyone's attention snapped to the boy who opened the door. His skin was as pale as paper, his hair and eyes like ink. He wore a long-sleeved dark purple shirt, black gloves with his right hand's index, middle and thumb fingers bare. He carried two scrolls attached to his hips on the same shade of purple pants. He also showed a midriff. "I apologize for the tardiness, my father held me back for a speech of what it means to be a leaf shinobi," the boy said with a smile that was easily seen as fake. Iruka had been warned by the Hokage that Danzo would send in an operative, but was told to let things flow for now. He smiled in return. "It is all right, I just gave a speech myself. What is your name?" "I am known as Sai Shimura," he said with a slight bow. This kid was creeping Iruka out to new levels. "All right, Sai, take a seat. You're just in time for team assignments. Thank you, sensei, Sai said with another bow as he went to sit in the empty seat next Shino. Alright, Team 1, Iruka began. 3 by 3, teams were assigned to each other and a sensei. It went on like this until Iruka got to Team 7. Team 7. Naruto Uzumaki, Sakura Haruno, Naruto smiled. And Sasuke Uchiha, Naruto frowned and Sakura proclaimed her joy while Sasuke sulked more. Your sensei is Kakashi Hitaki, Iruka finished. Team 8. Hinata Hyuga, Shino Aburame, and Spyro. Your sensei will be Kurenai Yuhi, Iruka said. Hinata looked around and smiled at Shino, who nodded. She tried to find the one she didn't know and found that it was the boy with the purple eyes who waved and smiled. She smiled back. Team 9 will be Kiba Inuzuka, Cinder, and Sai Shimura under Anko Mitarashi. Kiba winked at Cinder and Sai merely gave another creepy, fake smile, knowing his target now. And finally, Team 10 will be Ino Yamanaka, Shikamaru Nara, and Choji Akamichi under Asuma Sarutobi. Ino groaned and face desked. Choji continued munching and Shikamaru just mumbled something about troublesome blondes. Your sensei will be here momentarily to relieve you from my care. You are free to socialize until they do as long as it's not too disruptive, Iruka said going back to his office from the door in the front of the class. Trying to get the message across to the dog ninja, she slid onto Spyro's lap, making the poor male blush, but he didn't really mind. She whispered in his ear, "Are you like that every time we do something really provocative or just with public displays of affection?" Cinder genuinely asked. Naruto flicked a piece of paper her way that hit her nose. Even while being in a human form, her draconic nose was still sensitive and she glared at the boy who only had a small smile of mischief on his face. My money's on PDA was written. Cinder just playfully and friendly smiled at her friend. The teams went to get to know each other. The room was full of chatter, but it was relatively quiet. The first 6 teams were picked up almost immediately. The next one to come in was a woman in mesh blouse with only a right sleeve under what appeared to be a dress made of wrappings with a long thorny vine design on the wrappings themselves. Her untamed, shoulder-length, black hair framed her face and deep ruby eyes. Her eyes were deep enough that they almost thought she was a dragon like themselves. Team 8, come with me, she announced. Hinata and Shino got up and moved to the door, and as Cinder was going to kiss Spyro goodbye, they all heard a flying and sizzling sound. Naruto paled and Kurenai muttered, "Not again." Everybody hit the deck. Naruto yelled out, diving beneath a desk, taking Hinata with him as she was the first person he grabbed. Hinata, being the trusting person she was, went under with Naruto and went into a sitting position to brace for whatever impact was coming, too much worried about what was happening to blush, faint, and repeat. The others followed, since if Naruto was taking cover, then it might be a good idea too. They all heard a boom and the impact of kunai. Sasuke immediately lunged out from the desk into the smoking figure with a flying kick, as did Kiba and Akamaru, claws and fangs bared. Shino prepared to deploy his insects. The figure easily blocked the Uchiha Saiyan and kicked away the canine duo. Kurenai wasn't impressed. "Anko, this again?" she deadpanned. Anko gave a cheeky grin. "You know me," she replied. She then noticed everyone slowly getting up from their cover. "Alright, which one of you brats told you to duck and cover?" she asked, obviously annoyed. Every hand with the exception of a few pointed at Naruto. "Figures, it would be you, Foxy. How are ya?" she said as she put an arm around his shoulder playfully. Naruto wasn't really amused. "You said you would never try that again, Anko," he deadpanned. She waved him off. "I said I wouldn't do that again. How was I supposed to know that by doing that in the marketplace would result in a few minor incidents? 4 crates of fish ruined, a department store destroyed, a dance and music number." Kurenai and Naruto remarkably said simultaneously. The rest of the class didn't want to know. "Anywho, I'm a sensei now, kiddo, so I'm here to pick up my team," Anko cheerfully. "I tried to get you, but sadly my request was overruled." Why was it overruled? His eyes drifted down to his stomach. Anko quickly replied, "Not now, not here, later at your place, ramen and dango to celebrate, deal?" Naruto nodded his acceptance. "Oh, to Naruto's team, find something to do, you're going to be here a while. Now Team 9, let's blow this pop stand," she said as she started excessively marching out the door. Sai immediately followed, as did Kiba, while Cinder muttered a quick "see ya later" and walked out the door. Kurenai shook her head, but she was smiling too. Team 8, if you'd please. She started to walk out the door. On her way out she bumped into someone. He muttered a gruff, "Excuse me, miss." The man stepped aside for her to walk through. Team 10, get out here, the gruff voice called to the room, which he did not enter. Ino and Choji got up and dragged Shikamaru's lazing behind out the door with them, curious as to their new sensei. And then there was one team. Naruto had the gall to ask, what now? With Spyro, Leaf Village Park. Kurenai had led the team to a small area of the park where there were 3 stumps facing a tall copaiba. From what they could tell, the stumps were of elm, birch, and ash. Sit on whichever you'd like. Hinata sat on the elm stump, Spyro, the birch, and Shino, the ash. Now, I'm sure you all are proud of your graduation. This is a big step to your future as a ninja. Firstly, I'd like to start a little team building exercise. We'll introduce ourselves and say some things about ourselves. Who would like to go first? Shino raised his finger to indicate that he has a query. Sensei, would it not be proper to ask you to proceed first, so we have an example to follow in this procedure? She smiled warmly, so much like an Aburame, logical. Of course, I will. She cleared her throat. My name is Kurenai Yuhi. I enjoy vodka, genjutsu, and sushi. I don't like spilled drinks, misogyny, overall discrimination, and some sweets. My hobbies include drink tasting and creating new genjutsu. My dream for the future is to find someone I could settle down with, and if not, continue my career as long as possible. Spyro racked his brain for genjutsu and its meaning, trying to figure it out. His frustration was getting to him. Kurenai noticed this and decided to have a bit of fun with the boy. Would you like to go next, Spyro? He looked up in embarrassment and had a light blush that made Hinata giggle and Kurenai smile at the similarities between the two students. All right, my name is Spyro. I enjoy relaxing with my friends, lamb, and reading too. I don't like fighting unless necessary, my brother's antics sometimes, and discrimination because of the past. I guess I don't really have any hobbies. My dream is to see my brother and friends again, he said, thinking of those he and Cinder left behind beneath Warfang. I'm sure you will, Spyro, Kurenai said with comforting warmth. Shino? Shino pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose. My name is Shino Aburame. I enjoy entomology and gathering specimen for my collection. I don't like carnivorous plants, putrid scents, and anything that will harm insects. My hobbies include my above enjoyments. My dream is to become head of my clan, he said almost completely on a monotone. Kurenai thought this was very typical of his clan. She decided, after all, what she hoped to be the best for last. Hinata? The girl started playing with her fingers. My name is Hinata Hyuga. I like flower pressing and cinnamon rolls. I don't like subjugation and improper judgment. My hobby is also flower pressing, she said. She hesitated for a moment. One of my dreams is to become the head of my clan and change its ways. Kurenai smiled warmly and somehow knowingly. Thank you, Hinata. Her entire presence then changed, from kind and warm to serious and deadly. I hope you realize that once you go past this point, there is no going back. Once a ninja, always a ninja, they all nodded. At that moment, Spyro saw Kurenai raise her hands and form them into a hand sign. He tried to get away, but found himself paralyzed. His vision began to swim and blur. Demonic illusion. Hell viewing, her heard from everywhere and nowhere at once. Cinder's last nerve was working overtime without pay. First this Kiba ass kept hitting on her, this pale kid was creeping her out on a spiritual level, and then there's this woman who has to be on some sort of hallucinogen was supposed to be her leader. What next, male for coming down the street in a pink tutu while singing about rainbows? No, she can't think of something like that. Let's see. Spyro squirming in embarrassment? Not enough. Sparks freaking out because he flew into something bile? Sparks freaking out because he saw Spyro squirming in embarrassment? Perfect. All was right once again in Cinder's mind. She noticed that they stopped in what appeared to be an open-air bar. Well, there are worse places. She entered behind Anko and Kiba. She noticed that Sai didn't enter until after her. They got into a corner booth after Anko got a large plate of white blobs on sticks. She picked up 2 and popped one of the skewers in her mouth to consume one of the blobs. Kiba reached for 2 and gave one to Akamaru. They proceeded to mirror their sensei, with notably less enthusiasm. Cinder mentally shrugged and reached for one and bit into it. Oh, dear ancestors. It was creamy and filled with a bittersweet paste. The ball itself tasted slightly sour to her. She put the skewer down with the remaining blobs and settled into her seat. Anko looked at her and sighed like they insulted her mother. You okay, brats? What didn't you finish the dango? Cinder gave a weak smile in reply. I never tried this before, it's not for me. I simply do not like dango, sensei, Sai explained with his usual creepy, fake smile. Anko now looked like she'd been told that she was infertile. You've never had dango before, and you're telling that it doesn't taste good. Today is a sad day indeed. She looked down in what appeared to be mourning. For about 30 seconds, she looked down at the floor and didn't make a sound or moved a muscle that any of the teens could see. Well, that's a little heartbreaking, but that's life, she said somberly. She bounced back, however. Anyways, introductions, seeing as we have two noobs, we need him. I'll go first, she said with a grin. She cleared her throat a little dramatically. My name is Anko Mitarashi. I love dango, snakes, torture, and tea ceremonies. I hate traitors, bigots, and those who look down on others due to things out of their control or their past. My hobbies are tea ceremonies. My dream is to hunt down a traitor and put an end to him. Kiba took the initiative and went next. I'm Kiba Inuzuka, and this is my partner Akamaru. We like going for walks and pretty much doing anything together, and meaty foods. I hate stuff that isn't chewy and horrible smells. My hobby I guess is going for walks with Akamaru. My dream is to become a famous and renowned ninja. Akamaru barked with what they believed was agreement. Sai went next. I am Sai Shimura. I like my father, Elder Danzo Shimura. I enjoy painting and training. I do not like those who stray from the shinobi code or protocol. My hobbies are drawing and calligraphy. My dream is to serve the Leaf Village as best I can. I guess it's my turn. My name is Cinder. I like my boyfriend, Spyro, she said while glaring at Kiba, to a caliber that impressed Anko. Messing with him from time to time, and my friend, Naruto. I hate it when someone is judged because their past and things they had no control over, like sensei. My dream I guess is to be with Spyro. Anko nodded. I think you and I are going to get along swimmingly, Cinder, she said with a toothy grin. Now, you may have passed the exam, but you're not genin yet. This shocked Kiba and Akamaru. What do you mean we're not genin yet? This is a way of weeding out those who need additional training or those who shouldn't be in the ninja program, Anko explained. If you fail this test, you'll either be sent back to the academy for additional training or be dropped out of the ninja program entirely. Alright, sensei, what is our test? Sai asked. She looked at Cinder and Sai with an evil grin. Look at you two, cool as cucumbers. Your test is to track me down and capture me. You have until sundown to do it. You're going to have to come with lethal force if you want a chance at doing it. Got it? Her students nodded, each with a burning determination. Alright, your test starts now, she said as she disappeared in a plume of smoke. Sai narrowed his eyes at where Anko once was. Shadow clone. She was never here to begin with. He felt like he should be reprimanded for not noticing. Come on, staying here all day won't find sensei. Me and Akamaru know her scent now, let's go. Kiba said dashing out the door, waiting for Sai and Cinder impatiently. I knew you were a mutt, but I didn't think you could smell like one, Cinder said somewhat jokingly as she and Sai stepped outside, where Kiba and Akamaru were sniffing the air. It's one of my clan's techniques. We can send chakra to our noses and enhance our sense of smell to the level of a dog's, he said between sniffs. Your whole family can do that? Cinder said surprised. The Inuzuka clan are renowned for their canine-like characteristics, styles, and techniques, Sai said with that same smile. You're not from around here, are you? Kiba asked without thinking. Cinder's eyes gained a hard emerald edge. No, I'm not. Let's find Anko-sensei and pass this stupid test. Kiba smiled. That's the spirit, Cinder, he said just before Akamaru barked and gave a sharp sniff. He grinned in a feral manner. Found her, he exclaimed like a victorious predator. He took to the rooftops, followed very briefly by Cinder and Sai, heading northwest, towards the training grounds. With Spyro felt his world spinning. His vision was blurry, and all he could hear was this gentle breeze ruffling leaves. He felt light-headed like he was about to faint, yet, he felt completely awake. He felt himself collapse on the ground, finally feeling normal again. He slowly got up, not sure why those symptoms suddenly went away. He looked around and felt his blood freeze. In chains, he saw the guardians, unable to move and unconscious. He saw his home in the swamps ablaze and his parents and Sparks being held in lantern cages. Worse of all, he saw Malfoy sitting on a throne, with Cinder at his feet. He grinned and looked straight at him with those yellow, slitted eyes. This is what will happen now that you have left, young dragon. Make no mistake or any foolish belief that all will be peaceful. I shall return from the core of the planet, and there will be nothing you or Cinder can do to stop me. Spyro was paralyzed, his mind simply unable to cope. No, this can't be. Malfoy laughed. It will be true, young Spyro. I will return, and the destroyer will consume your world in fire and ash. Then, I shall come to this new world you are in. As he said this, he saw the destroyer, towering over the mountain with faces on its side. Spyro's eyes widened in terror. The destroyer gave a mighty roar and the Leaf Village was set ablaze. He heard chuckling from behind him that was definitely not Malfoy's. Definitely female. He turned and saw Cinder, fully grown and corrupted, laughing at him and the destruction around them. Sorry, brat, the adult Cinder boasted. You don't get points for being persistent, not this time. All his fears were coming true before his eyes. One moment he was with Kurenai-sensei, Shino, and Hinata, then he heard this voice say. Wait, Spyro's eyes grew sharp in realization. None of this is real. It's an illusion, he said with near disbelief. He looked straight at Cinder and Malfoy. You are not real. You're just fake. Malfoy and Cinder roared and went straight at him. Spyro closed his eyes and focused on himself and tried to reach out for what is real. Malfoy and Cinder went straight through the dragon in human form. Spyro's eyes opened with a flash of purple and power surged through him. A small burst of his dragon energy mixed with his recently found chakra. It roared with the fury of the fire dragon ancestors. The world around him dissolved away and left him standing in the park. With Kurenai looking at him in surprise, Hinata with the veins around her eyes bulging and her eyes in shock, and Shino with his eyebrows raised. Spyro's power faded, and he fell to one knee, drained. Kurenai was amazed. While it was a very low-level genjutsu, the demonic illusion, Hell's viewing technique was one that brought someone face to face with their own worst fears. She had expected Hinata to be able to detect the illusion with her Byakugan, and Shino due to the fact that insects lack a prosencephalon structure of the brain, making the Aburame less susceptible to genjutsu. With almost any genjutsu, you could dispel it by stopping your chakra and then releasing it to disrupt the flow of chakra. She knew Spyro was a dragon, due to the Hokage informing all elite Jonin-ranked personnel and the sensei for the two, herself and Anko. Due to his lack of training, she thought he wouldn't be able to break the genjutsu, at least on his own. I'll have to keep an eye on this dragon, she thought. Spyro, are you okay? Hinata called, coming to her teammates' aid, her Byakugan still active. She hadn't realized that a genjutsu was cast until it was broken by a flare of power that felt somewhat like chakra next to her. Spyro looked up groggily. Yeah, I'm okay, I think. He tried to pick himself up with much effort, but failed and almost dropped back down. Kurenai-sensei caught him, however. Easy there, Spyro. I'm impressed that you were able to break the genjutsu like that. I was going to dispel it after a few minutes. She set the dark blonde to sit on the stump behind him. This is when Shino decided to speak. Why did you cast a genjutsu on us in the first place, sensei? Well, it was to see if you had the will to face your fears. Kurenai explained. As shinobi, all of you will face horrible, monstrous things. Things that are inhumane, things that are evil, things that defy everything you believe to be right. You will eventually have to kill in order to put an end to these things. The other is that each Jonin, when they take on a genin team, they must administer a test of their own choosing to see if they candidates are worthy to become genin, go back to the academy for additional training, or be dropped out of the program entirely. Out of your entirely graduating class, only about 33 to 40% of you will move on to become genin this year, Kurenai finished. Only 40%? Hinata gasped, worried that Naruto may not become a ninja after all. Yes. It's quality control, Hinata. You've all passed my test since you were able to face your fears and stand tall against them. It also helps that Spyro was able to dispel the genjutsu, And I could tell that both you and Shino were about to dispel it on yourselves before he did, Kurenai said with a smile. Welcome to Team 8, her students smiled with glee. From here, the road only gets harder. Come to Training Ground 33 at 9 a.m. for team training, then missions. The rest of the day is yours to with as you wish, she said before she disappeared in a swirl of leaves. After a moment of looking where their sensei was, Shino was the first to speak. I apologize, my father wanted me to report back to him after we met out sensei. I will see you tomorrow, Hinata, Spyro, Shino spoke as he began walking home. I had to go report to father as well. I'm sorry, Spyro, Hinata said with a bow. It is okay, Hinata, I don't know where the training ground is. Can you meet in front of the academy to show me the way? He asked politely. She smiled softly and nodded. Yes, I will, Spyro. Goodbye. Spyro decided to go back to the apartment. Today was a good day. With Cinder. Cinder roared as she swiped at the large serpent standing between her and Anko-sensei. They had managed to find her, but then she summoned snakes for her team to fight while she got away. Sai went after her, leaving Kiba, Akamaru and Cinder to combat the snakes. I've always hated snakes, Kiba said as he kicked away the snake's head as it tried to strike at Akamaru. I'm just getting tired of this, Cinder said. She called upon her draconic energy, and it mixed with her chakra. She had a flash of a vision telling her what to do. She did a trio of hand seals and inhaled sharply. Fire style. Shadow fire. She yelled out, unleashing black flames that struck true on her target. The serpent did not expect an elemental technique, let alone one that seemed so advanced and powerful. It would have to return to the summon realm to heal after being struck by the ice-cold, black flames. It disappeared in a poof of smoke as it came. Kiba and Akamaru were surprised. Whoa, that was awesome. Didn't know you knew a fire-style jutsu. Cinder shrugged. No time to gawk. We got to help Sai with Anko-sensei. She dashed off as fast as she could to where she last saw Sai. With Anko, they were outside Training Ground 44, also known as the Forest of Death. She ducked under Sai's strike at her neck with his tanto. There's no doubt about it. He's definitely a member of Root. His taijutsu style and characteristics matched up perfectly. She'll have to report to the Hokage immediately after this. She dodged another strike and jumped back. Hidden shadow snakes, she called out as a few dozen serpents shot out at Sai from her sleeves. Sai narrowed his eyes and went to the trees to avoid the snakes turned projectiles. He opened his scroll and opened the ink and brush and began to draw quickly. He raised his hand in a one-handed ram seal. Ninja art. Super beast scroll, he said calmly, as a drawing of large mongoose burst from his scroll and dived straight for Anko. She threw a kunai with an explosive tag and detonated it when it hit the inked marsupial. Clever. A mongoose didn't think Danzo raised any of his shinobi to have a sense of humor, she said with a mild glare. Sai stared back evenly. He drew again and this revealed to be very large tigers to maul the snake mistress. Father raised me to be a strong shinobi for the Hidden Leaf Village, he replied. She flew through a few hand seals and cast a small fire-style jutsu and went to throw a few shuriken and kunai at high speeds at the root ninja. He deflected a few of them, but he missed a few and they grazed his arm and thigh. Sai reached down, put pressure on the leg wound. That was close to a vital artery. I must exercise caution. He then saw the rest of his teammates coming towards them. That's right, we're supposed to capture Mitarashi for the genin test. He drew a bird creature to ride on and quickly proceeded to draw a large snake to capture her while Kiba, Akamaru, and Cinder engaged their sensei. These brats are doing well. She noticed the snake and tried to kick it with as much power as she could manage while fighting 3 other opponents, but it turned slightly and was able to hook her foot. Damn, Anko swore as she felt herself trip and Kiba put his hand around her throat with a kunai in his other hand at the ready. She was vaguely reminded of a date with another Inuzuka. She pushed that aside for the moment. You pass, brats. Congrats, she said. Kina released her and the snake dissolved into ink. That's slightly gross, she said looking at the ink now dripping down her leg. She was also reminded of the date with that Inuzuka. Report here for training at 9 in the morning. See y'all later. She disappeared using the body flicker jutsu to report to the Hokage to confirm her team passing and to report about the route she's been placed in charge of. As they watched their sensei disappear in a swirl of leaves, Kiba hollered. Yeah, we did it. We're genin. Sai was smiling, and it didn't seem as fake. I look forward to working with the two of you. I must be off now. Father has asked me to report to him when I came home. Goodbye. He disappeared in a swirl of ink, leaving Kiba and his dog with Cinder. So, want to go for some barbecue? He asked. Cinder smiled, but raised her hand. Perhaps another time, Kiba. I want to go home and rest. Maybe next time as a team. Kiba smirked. Alright then, me and Akamaru got to go talk to my mom anyways. See ya tomorrow, Cinder. Come on, Akamaru. The feral boy and his dog took off running back towards the village. The black-haired girl looked towards the setting sun. This might not be so bad, she said to herself. She started to walk at a leisurely pace to her shared apartment, wondering how Naruto and Spyro fared with their tests. Meanwhile, in the Hokage's office, Hiruzen took a long drag from his pipe, savoring the tobacco's flavor. The Sarutobi always loved smoking. I should have known Danzo would put an agent onto the team roster. But why claim this boy as his son? He asked aloud. Anko was standing at attention, as was his son and Kurenai. He must have a lot of faith in this agent to do so, Lord Hokage. Anko did say that she had minor trouble with him, and that he brought drawings to life, Kurenai stated, giving her thoughts on the boy her friend has been put in charge of. I know of no such clan that is able to bring drawings and art to life, except maybe the Kurama clan. But, from what Anko has described, it is certainly ninjutsu, not genjutsu, the Hokage rebutted respectfully to his subordinate. At any rate, I'll have one of my best Enbu monitor your team during training, Anko. It is perfectly alright with me, Lord Hokage. I just request that my team be out of the way for if we need to take this side down. He might just be monitoring Cinder for Danzo to see if she is a threat or something to be used later. Asuma brought his thoughts to the table, after he took a drag from his cigarette. His father grunted in agreement while taking a drag from his pipe. He turned to Kurenai. How has young Spyro done? Kurenai took a breath to clear her mind. Spyro is unusual. He dispelled one of my genjutsu not just on himself, but on the wild team by flaring his chakra. Anko gave an impressed whistle. Wow, Nai, kid must be good if he could dispel one of your genjutsu. It was a low-level genjutsu, the Hell's Viewing. My entire team was under it for about 3 minutes, and I could tell that Shino and Hinata were about to break it on themselves. But then Spyro flared his chakra, Kurenai rebutted and explained. I sense that there's something else, Miss Yuhi, the Hokage said. His chakra, it was like there was something else there. Something I couldn't place, she said, frustrated that she could not place it, despite being a Jonin. It is quite alright, Kurenai. I believe that was what the dragons call fury energy, Hiruzen explained. It is possible that given their new forms, and their run-in with the nine-tailed fox previously, they might have gained the ability to use chakra, and their fury energy somehow mixed with the chakra they gained, Hiruzen theorized. Seems legit. What do we do about it? Anko asked. Hiruzen dragged on his pipe and thought for a moment. Ask them to stay behind for additional training after your team training. Inform them that you were let in on the information and offer to train them in the use of the chakra. It is unlikely that they even know the 3 basic jutsu that are taught in the academy. Understood, Lord Hokage, sounded Anko and Kurenai. Hiruzen nodded. Good, dismissed. At the apartment, Cinder just walked in the door as it got completely dark out. She came in and was surprised to find Anko-sensei with Spyro and Naruto, all of them eating furiously into ramen and dango. They all looked up from their meals and swallowed. Glad to see you made it, Cinder. Take the scenic route? Naruto joked. I did actually, the village is beautiful during the sunset, she cheekily replied. She then noticed that Spyro was feasting into the dango. Why are you eating dango? It doesn't taste very good. Spyro looked at her like she grew a second head. What are you talking about, Cinder? It tastes great. The purple dragon turned human exclaimed before he took a bite off the skewer. Anko grinned. While you may not like it, at least your boyfriend likes it, she teased, wrapping an arm around Spyro and pulling him close. Cinder growled dangerously and shadow fire was leaking from her fingertips. Anko noticed this and smirked. Feisty, I think I am really going to get along with you, girly. As for this, she gestured to the dragon teen in her arm. You better get used to claiming your territory. Girls in the land of fire are especially, what's the word, persistent. Spyro swallowed nervously. Territory? He looked to Naruto pleadingly. Persistent? He felt himself grabbed by Cinder. Mine, she growled as she carried Spyro towards their bedroom. Help? Spyro squeaked. Cinder threw him in and slammed the door. Anko and Naruto stared at the door for a while minute before they started to laugh. Ah, I've missed nights like this, little bro, she said somewhat softly as she pulled Naruto in a one-armed hug. Me too, big sis, he said returning the hug. So they sat there on the couch for the rest of the night, just talking until Naruto fell asleep. Anko smiled and carried him to his room and tucked him. Good night, kiddo. She placed a kiss on his forehead and looked back to his sleeping form and smiled. Before shutting the door behind her. 2 months has passed since the Genin exam, and Naruto, Cinder, and Spyro have all gotten used to the new things in their lives, especially their teams. For Naruto specifically, a always late pervert of a sensei. During his exam, he made it so his team would have very little energy, and force them against each other to get a bell. They all had failed miserably, with only Sasuke being skilled enough to make Kakashi put away his book for a moment. They had only passed when Sasuke offered his lunch to the tied-up and starving Naruto, Sakura following his example. Unfortunately, as an example of the kind of things they would have to face, Kakashi put a kunai to Sasuke's throat, telling Sakura to kill Naruto, or he would kill Sasuke. Everyone saw her hand subconsciously twitch towards her pouch, much to her and Naruto's horror. While Kakashi saw this, he noticed that Sakura did stop herself, but Naruto's crush on the pink-haired beauty was, well, crushed. He still considered her a friend, but his heart was broken and he started to distance himself from Sakura. He cried into Cinder's shoulder with Spyro at his side, rubbing his back. Both dragons knew it would take time for the blonde's heart to heal. It made Cinder's blood boil. She vowed to beat the bubblegum bitch to an inch of her life first chance she got. Naruto hardly ate or left his bedroom for the week after. They brought him ramen, but he only ate half a bowl. It got to the point when Anko-sensei, Kakashi-sensei, the Hokage, and surprisingly Sasuke came in to check on the normally hyperactive blonde. Eventually he came out of his room, but was still crestfallen. Strangely, Cinder smelled something familiar whenever Naruto stepped out of the shower. Faint, very faint underneath the scent of soap, but familiar. Eventually, Naruto was back to his old self. Loud and obnoxious, but he grows on you like a bad itch. They were doing D-rank missions, which Naruto quickly explained were simple chores from often somewhat well-off citizens of the village, ranging from farm work to shopping to child and animal care. It ticked Cinder and Naruto off to no end, but Spyro didn't mind it. When asked about it he simply replied, "It gives us something to do, and some money. Helping people is the biggest benefit to me." Anko and Kurenai were both surprised to see such gentleness and humanity in a young heart, even if it wasn't technically human. The two young ones still complained, but it was significantly less. As far as skills are concerned, the three were well above the level that they were, thanks to Kurenai. First week of Under Her Spyro, Hinata, and Shino were each given a demonstration and a scroll in tree walking, a chakra control exercise. Spyro shared this scroll with Cinder and Naruto, and within 2 weeks, they all have mastered the exercise. Kurenai each then gave the three a jutsu, however Spyro was secretly given 4, the replacement, the transformation, the clone technique, and finally, the temporary paralysis techniques. Naruto helped with practical learning of the former 2, and Spyro and Cinder mastered the clone within a month. The temporary paralysis technique itself was simple to learn, but difficult to master. They were trying to prolong the amount of time they could stop a target. Naruto's record is 2 minutes, Cinder's is 5, Spyro's is an astounding 10 minutes. Currently, the three were enjoying a dinner at home, with Kurenai and Anko being invited to join. The 3 children weren't at all awkward with their teachers, only Kurenai showing minor awkwardness. "I'm telling you, Nai. You should have seen her face when I wrapped my arm around your brat. She looked like she was about to make me burst into flames." Anko laughed around eating a dango stick. "Considering she is a dragon, Anko, that could very well be possible," Kurenai said, sipping her tea. "Fire isn't one of my elements, though I can create flames," Cinder refuted. She too was sipping tea, the blend that she got on a whim with a small portion of her income from the missions. Earl Grey, it was called. It was sweet and somewhat minty, and both Spyro and Cinder enjoyed it. "Oh, really? Explain yourself," Anko exclaimed with an accusatory finger pointed at the raven-haired teen. "I can use poison, shadow, fear, and wind as my elements. Spyro uses fire, along with electricity, ice, and earth, and can use any other element along with them." "So, Spyro can do all the stuff you can do?" Naruto said, swallowing his food before doing so. "In theory, I learned the elements one at a time, with masters who have not only used them for decades, but was in their very bloodlines themselves," Spyro said, thinking of the Guardians. "Are these masters the Guardians you talked about before?" his sensei asked. "Yeah, Ignitus taught me proper combat and how to use fire, Voltor taught me electricity, Cyril taught me ice, and Terrador taught me earth." "Ha ha, their names are hilarious," Anko said with a chuckle. Everyone looked at her funny. Their names are puns on their elements. Ignite. To light something on fire, volt. A measurement of electricity, 0, for Cyril, I guess. And Terra means, earth. Meanwhile, in the White Isle, the chronicler sneezed, almost setting a bookshelves ablaze. Her shook it off and continued reading. "Why a dragon is sealed inside a gauntlet is beyond me, but why is this human so obsessed with S?" Ignitus exclaimed as he continued reading. Back at the apartment. "Anyways, what's your progress on the temporary paralysis jutsu, Spyro?" Kurenai asked, trying to divert the attention away from Anko and her puns. "I am able to hold it for 10 minutes, Kurenai-sensei," Spyro said modestly, taking a bite of the Chinese food on his plate. "Incredible. I was only able to hold it for 10 after 4 months of using it." The ruby-eyed woman praised her student. "Yeah, I can hold it for only 5. Cinder muttered, which did not go unnoticed by anyone present. "Spyro, I was unaware you taught it to Cinder. Did you teach it to Naruto as well?" Kurenai asked. "Yes, I did. I also taught them the tree walking you gave us, and we mastered it together," he said without hesitation. Naruto, expecting Spyro to be yelled at for it, was surprised. "Very good, you should help your comrades grow stronger. I'm proud." Naruto wisely chose not to vocalize his surprise, in favor of eating his fried rice. "A wise decision indeed. I heard you have a C rank tomorrow, Naruto?" Anko asked. "Yeah, we have to escort to this drunk, old bridge builder back and protect him while he finishes his bridge," he said, swallowing his food before speaking. "Be careful, Naruto. You never know what you may encounter," Kurenai warned. "Ah, what could possibly go wrong?" he dismissed with a wave of his hands. "Excuse me, Anko-sensei? May I take famous last words for 2000? Cinder asked, in a completely serious tone. "Daily double," Anko exclaimed, pounding her fist on the table, making the plateware clink and clang from the force. "It's only a escort mission, not an assassination, it'll be fine," Naruto said. "If you say so, just be prepared," Kurenai ordered. Naruto gave a salute and returned to his meal. Shimura clan compound, Danzo's private study. "What have you to report, Sai?" Danzo asked, drinking tea. "She is progressing strong, my lord. She has shown one unknown fire element technique. I have not seen it, but it is spoken about by the Inuzuka." Sai reported from his position on one knee to Danzo's right. "Anything else to speak of?" "She has shown that she knows the basic clone technique, along with the replacement, the transformation, and has some mastery over the temporary paralysis technique. She uses an unknown style that resembles the snake style used by Mitarashi and Orochimaru. I have no other information I can provide, Lord Danzo." "Thank you, Sai. You are dismissed to spend the remainder of time until lights out to do as you wish," Danzo ordered. "Yes, father," Sai said with that eerie smile. Danzo stayed in his study, drank his tea as he looks towards the waxing gibbous moon. He certainly would never admit it aloud, and was fairly certain he wouldn't utter it under torture, but he was fond of the boy. He was by the best ninja under his command. He hoped that more like him will turn up. For now, however, he had to focus on these drakes that the Jinchuriki summoned. Jiraiya gave them human forms using seals, but when Kakashi impaled them, the Toad Sage risked the leaf's destruction to save them and the Jinchuriki. On one hand, he wanted Jiraiya executed on the spot for such recklessness. On the other, he felt praise should be given to him for saving one of the village's greatest assets, and perhaps 2 more assets. If he could get his hands on a child of theirs, even in half-breed, an egg, or whatever these creatures would produce, If what's the purple dragon said was true, their child could rival in Jinchuriki or a cage easily, perhaps two of each. He could not afford to let this opportunity to slip through his grasp. His pride wouldn't stand it, and it was needed to protect the Leaf Village. It needed to be protected at all costs. Danzo could still remember when it was founded. He was but a small child, and the wars between the ninja clans were ending, and a coalition was being formed, with the two most powerful leading it: the Senju of the Forest and the Uchiha of the Flames. His clan, along with the clan of his friend and rival, were the first to join. It was actually how he met Hiruzen. The clans that are here today soon followed after, and the rest they say is history. He admired the first greatly, but felt his teachings were flawed. Peace should be maintained through dominance. If the village dominated the other clans before they formed their own villages, the Leaf would be powerful, strong, the hand that guided the world. It was time he got to bed. Danzo grabbed his cane and limped towards his chambers, adjacent to his study. The next morning, Spyro and Cinder awoke the same time as Naruto did to see him off and wish him luck. They met Naruto's team at the gate, and Cinder restrained herself from showing Sakura the former terror of the skies. Naruto, much to his team's surprise, hugged both dragons and said he would see them soon. Before she left, Cinder glared at Sakura with a look that promised pain should something happen to Naruto. As they were walking back, a timid Hyuga who was watching from afar felt a heaviness in her heart. She would not allow anyone to get between her and her Naruto. Several hours later, Anko and Kurenai decided to have the teams spar together in order so that they can get their own C-rank missions. Right now Sai was sparring against Spyro and easily had the upper hand. It ended with a blade at Spyro's throat, Kurenai calling the match. "Alright, next up, Cinder vs Hinata," Kurenai announced to the training field. Hinata and Cinder went to the center of the field, while the spectators were off to the side in the eastern direction. The two young women were about 20 feet from each other. Cinder was facing north, Hinata the south. "Alright, begin," Anko yelled. Hinata wasted no time closing the distance and unleashed a very un-Hyuga-like uppercut to Cinder's jaw, sending her flying back and forcing Cinder to roll on the ground. Cinder's head was spinning, but saw that she could waste no time as Hinata was closing in on her, fast. She lashed out with a kick and Hinata had to backflip to dodge it, but she was not left unscathed. "Ah!" the Hyuga screamed as the front of her baggy coat was torn away, along with the bottom half of her shirt, revealing a flat, smooth, pale stomach that matched the rest of her alabaster skin. She glared with a ferocity that honestly scared Kurenai, never seeing her act this fierce. Cinder was unnerved, seeing much more fearsome stares from the sky pirates that forced her to fight in their arena. And in retrospect, they were much weaker enemies than the golems. She got back into her fighting stance, her muscle memory guiding her, feeling like Naruto's mother was guiding her for a moment. Hinata closed the distance between her and Cinder and started unleashing a flurry of gentle fist strikes, and attacks that should be more associated with the green beast of the leaf. Cinder was able to match blow for blow. "Damn, Kurenai, never thought your little shy princess had this much fight in her," Anko praised her friend, never taking an eye of the two brawling girls. "Neither did I," Kurenai muttered, wondering where this ferocity came from, having known Hinata for most of her young life, since her mother passed. Hinata saw an opening, and took it, using her superb chakra control to create talons similar to the Inuzuka and slashed horizontally against Cinder's chest. "Hey!" Cinder exclaimed and she dodged away, leaving behind scraps of her shirt, revealing a purple sports bra she had gotten from a shopping trip with Anko. Spyro stared, shocked, not noticing Kiba's wolf whistles. Cinder charged the distance between her and her opponent, as did Hinata. They met in the middle, fist and palm colliding. Faster than anyone could blink, a great amount of force was exerted outwards from the point their hands collided, creating a large gust. The Jonin actually had to avert their eyes, for a moment, and the Genin Sans Sai had to turn away. When the dust cleared they were in for a shock. The two were still fighting, in their underwear. The force from their attacks tore away their clothes. Hinata wearing a highly surprising but still modest set of black lingerie, and Cinder wearing a simple pair of purple panties with her sports bra were still going at it. Kiba couldn't decide whose chest to watch, Hinata's modestly covered, well-developed one, or Cinder's covered and developing one. As the two continued to exchange blows, seemingly oblivious to the fact that they're practically naked. Spyro was about to faint at the fact that his mate-to-be was fighting in such a state. Anko and Kurenai leapt into action to preserve what modesty the girls had left. Anko grabbed, flipped and pinned Cinder while Kurenai trapped Hinata in a sleeping genjutsu. Spyro instantly fainted, and Kiba and Akamaru gave barking laughs to the poor boy. "I believe we're done today. Shino, please take Spyro home with Anko and leave a note as such," Kurenai requested of her student. "It will be done, sensei," the Aburame said as he lifted Spyro onto his shoulder. Anko called out from her position on top of Cinder. "Same goes for you brats. You're dismissed." She noticed that Cinder was out cold too. She threw her onto her shoulder after getting off of her. "Come on, Shino," she said to her friend student. Together, they went towards the shared apartment, not knowing of what is happening to those that they're carrying. Near the border of the land of fire and the land of waves. "I pledge upon this wound that I will complete this mission," Naruto proclaimed after cutting his hand open with a kunai to drain out the poison from the demon brothers. Everyone who was conscious was amazed at his tenacity. Kakashi, however, had enough of this and decided to stop it before it got too dangerous for Naruto's health. "It might be a good idea to stop the bleeding now, you know," he said as a somewhat teasing voice. Everyone saw Naruto tense up. They only heard him mutter a single word before he fell over in a dead faint. "Chronicler." Kakashi sighed. He picked Naruto up and began to carry him. "He'll be fine, it appears he's gone into a self-imposed hypnotic trance. He'll wake up soon," he assured his group. He knew Tazuna would eat up his half-lie, but doubted Sakura and Sasuke would buy it. In his mind, it really was a half-lie, because some ninja would emulate the samurai and put themselves in meditative trances to ready for battle. Master Jiraiya and Lord Third did tell him about this chronicler, and assumed that this had something to do with him. He only hoped whatever business he had with his student would finish quickly. A place unknown. Cinder, as she was coming to, expected to either be at home, or in the White Isle. She was shocked when she found neither. She awoke to her back half-soaked in ankle-deep water, and appeared that she was in some kind of sewer system. There were blue pipes and purple pipes running along walls of this place. "Where in the name of the ancestors am I?" she asked aloud. "A world of my creation, whelp," said a voice she recognized, but its owner she couldn't see. "Fox, why did you bring me here? Where is Naruto?" she snarled, snapping her head back and forth trying to find the demon's voice. "He is visiting with that fool the chronicler. He is safe, for now," she heard. Cinder could practically feel the grin. "As for why you're here, I saw you fight with the Hyuga. I was impressed, so I decided to give you a prize, that is, if you can claim it." The fox cackled. "And what would I want from you?" Cinder snarled. As if in response, a shimmering, sickly green orb appeared before her. "Really? Not even your power of poison?" the Nine-Tails baited. Cinder lunged for it, and it disappeared. "Give it back," Cinder growled, "along with Spyro's elements and my own," she demanded. "In due time. I find this more enjoyable. Now if you want your poison back, here are the rules to our game," the fox began, while Cinder glared at the wall. Rule 1. You cannot die while in this world, or your real body will die as well. Or I can take it for myself. Over my dead body, Cinder roared. Yes, it would be, the Nine-Tails spoke with mirth. Rule 2. You will not receive any help. Rule 3. You have 1 hour to obtain your element, or you will die here, whelp. Cinder clenched her fists but otherwise stayed quiet. Rule 4. Anything goes. Any questions? Yeah, how did you bring me here? Cinder demanded to know. The fox's disembodied voice gave a thunderous laugh. You have a link to 2 of my containers, that makes you linked to me, if limited. I'd hurry, whelp. Time is not on your side. Cinder glared and made her way down the hallway, following the purple pipes, until she found a light at the end of the tunnel. Quickly, a single light became visual in the darkness. The dragoness rushed towards it, her resolve unyielding. When she reached the end, she found herself in a tundra, a familiar one. Dante's freezer, she muttered to herself. She had not time to look around long. Half a dozen small fox-like creatures rose from the snow, their carmine fur contrasting with the icy blue. Cinder narrowed her eyes and charged, using to sleek snow and ice to slide and deliver a devastating kick to the jaw of the lead one, balancing herself on her hand as her target flew into the air. The kitsune shadows charged at her. Not wasting any time, she spun herself on her hands, to kick with her legs in a spinning motion, sending the rest flying back. As the one in the air came crashing back down, she leapt out of the circle and let it fall into the frozen ground. She channeled her dragon energy and released a stream of shadow fire. It hit the shadows, the attack destroying them, suffocating them in a cold, burning embrace. She continued to progress through the fortresses of the frozen peninsula, gaining flashbacks of the atrocities as the Dark Master's puppet and as the general of his armies. She shook them off, willing herself to go on through the cold. She surprisingly found little resistance, only finding more shadows in groups of 2 or 3 in every other closed space she had to enter. She stopped in front of the largest bastion on the island, which previously housed the electricity guardian, Volter, so she could drain away his power to free Malefor, guarded by the Ice King, a massive ghoul with the power of the cold he ruled over. She felt her element inside, so she was about to enter, but was stopped. Cinder, wait. Cinder turned and found Kushina behind her, not looking the least affected by the snow. She looked pale though. Kushina, what are you doing here? How are you here? I linked myself to you, so I could help you out when you needed it. Unfortunately, the fuzzball decided to use it for himself, to play this damn game with you. Kushina growled and clenched her fist. Thunder rumbled and the sky flashed red, an image of a fox snarling in the snow clouds. Ah, shut it, fox. Why did you stop me? My element is there, and I'm almost out of time. Cinder asked. Yes, I know. You have about 13 minutes left. Just enough time for me to give you this. Kushina raised her hand towards Cinder and closed her eyes. Cinder felt a rush of power course through her. I gave you a Uzumaki clan technique. You can only use it 3 times, make them count. With that, the Uzumaki woman faded away. Cinder shouted to the sky, wait. What exactly did you give me? She got no answer. Remembering that she had about 12 minutes left, she rushed down to the basement of the fortress. She found her element, in the form of her own dragon form, with sickly green scales being held in a prison the same as what she held the guardians in. There was even a crystal draining its power. She moved towards it, stopped by deep laughter. I'm surprised you made it this far. I'm impressed again, whelp. The voice of the 9-tailed fox boomed throughout the cavern. Why are you doing this? Cinder yelled in return. I'm bored. I've been stuck inside that boy for 13 years, and something interesting is practically given to me on a silver platter, in the form of you and the purple dragon. Was I expected to just ignore it? The fox replied. With a boon, the cave shook with a resounding crack. Cracks spread to the floor, leaving it lower than the rest of the room, leaving Cinder below the imprisoned element. A orange mist started to condense on the throne, and solidified into a humanoid fox wearing a blood-red and black kimono. You do not have much time, whelp. You have but 10 minutes to defeat the creature I will unleash upon you. If you do not, the makeshift arena you're standing in will fall into the abyss, and I will consume you in your power. Ahahaha, the fox boasted. He thrust his palm towards the floor, and his chakra bubbled and hissed as it began to form and mold something. It grew tall and sleek, it grew a skeleton, and then armor formed over it, and finally, it got weapons. A spiked shield, and a long spear. It looked like a fox like Ice King. Cinder wasted no time attacking the thing, emblazoning her fists in shadow fire. She released an onslaught of attacks on the beast. It was barely affected, though she managed to break its shield. She thought it was time to do that Uzumaki thing Kushina gave to her, so she started to channel her chakra all around her body. She felt warm all over. The 9-tailed fox sensed it and its eyes widened. Kushina, he growled, you cheated the rules of the game. Golden chains burst from her body in all directions. They pierced all the walls and the beast itself. The beast moaned and bleated in agony. Cinder could see this and was shocked thoroughly. The beast began to dissolve as it died. Uzumaki chakra is quite potent against Biju chakra. Kushina's voice echoed throughout the chamber. Ninja don't play by the rules. Cinder jumped up and the 9 tails leapt to intercept her. The beast was too late as Cinder had made contact with her double. A bright light shone throughout the icy cavern. Cinder found herself awake in her bed, with Spyro right beside her. She thought it was a dream and concentrated on vile and toxicity. To her surprise, relief, and joy, her hands started to drip with a sickly green ooze. She went to the bathroom and washed it off quickly before it could get too potent. It went down the sink drain like snot. Not a very pretty image, but made Cinder happy nonetheless. She went back to bed and laid down back next to Spyro. In his sleep, Spyro wrapped his arms around her, and snuggled into her chest and neck. Cinder put an arm around the boy. "I love you, Canyon," Spyro mumbled in his sleep. Cinder smiled and kissed his brow. "I love you, too." She then let sleep take her.